Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 9 of Barbarian Banter. I'm your host, Dane Millerhaus,
And I am your second host, Jonas Kilker.
and today we are honored to have on our guest, Ethan, who is a historian who specializes in the American West, Heritage Americana, and fashion. So, Ethan, it is absolutely a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you. I'm stoked to be here. Huge fan of the show. Huge fan of everything esoteric. Can't wait to dive into the conversation with you both, and hopefully we can explore a wide array of topics.
And that I'm excited for. To kind of start us off, you obviously have a penchant for blending history and fashion. How did that kind of start for you?
Short answer, I love both, so it's very easy to mix both. But I guess the origin story is I've always been interested in style. I grew up skateboarding and skiing, and I think that skateboarders always try to come off like they're, dudes that don't care. Like I don't care at all. But truthfully, it's one of the most judgmental sports. Like if you don't have the right gear, if you don't have the right swag, if you don't have the right look,
The
you're
Steez.
yeah, you're like a poser. So it kind of pushes you to like think about what you're wearing and think about the gear you're using. But also, kind of on the other side, from a very young age, I was interested in history. I think it was just like a very early exposure to the movie Pearl Harbor. I think like I just saw
Well,
Pearl Harbor when I was super young, and I was like, damn, that happened. I mean, obviously you're young and you're not thinking like you don't know. As I'm older, I'm like, this is the biggest. I mean, can you swear on this? Is that
yeah,
is
go
it
for it.
okay?
Yeah,
Yeah.
go for
I was
it.
like, this is the biggest piece of dog shit I've ever seen in my life. But uh, it gets you thinking about it. And then as time progressed, I studied history in college, and all throughout my adulthood, you just kind of start to think more and more about, you know, your style and how it's evolved. I think every man goes through this. I think we all just start out dressing how our friends dress in like elementary school, middle school. Then as you branch out, as you get older, your occupation, your surroundings, like shape, and I guess now with social media, it all shapes the way that you view yourself and how you
Yeah.
want to present yourself. So that's kind of how the marriage of my content began. So
That's
yeah,
super interesting. I have to comment really quick because I was also a skateboarder growing up, still am a skateboarder.
nice.
Um, but it's so true. Like, because I was also in the music scene, I played in like various punk bands. And one of the funniest things about like the punk music scene is fashion is obviously also very much a part of it. But the skate punks and the surf punks were kind of like more like my group of people, and our whole thing was not trying to look like we are punk but also looking more punk than the people who are not punk. And it
Yeah,
was so it's so interesting because it almost felt like we were walking such a delicate line where it's like you're right, like even if you're a skater and it just seems like, oh, everything is just like, oh, I'm just wearing what's comfortable so I can skate in it. It's like, no, if you were doing that, you would wear, but you're not.
yeah.
And yeah, it's so interesting that sort of blend. I actually never really put that together until you just said it right now. So that's a very
Yeah,
eye-opening moment for me.
I remember like the first time I had this like realization of like the dudes I all look up to are wearing skinny corduroy pants from a brand called Crew. It was like
Crew.
Krew,
Yeah.
Crew. And I was like, Mom, I need these pants. Like all the best skaters are wearing this shit right now.
Yeah.
Like I have to
Where
have it.
did you grow up?
Logan, Utah. So northern
Okay.
Oh,
Utah
okay.
on the border of Idaho. So it's actually the valley where Napoleon Dynamite takes place.
Oh, that's
That's
super cool.
Oh,
yeah.
that
Uh,
that is
Yeah.
a claim to fame right there.
I agree.
seriously.
I went to Napoleon Dynamite days, like the festival they had where you like eat tots and wear like American flag sweats. It's
That's
like,
so cool.
but
That's funny.
you just said something too. Like I live in Salt Lake, and there's a really popular kind of cult classic movie, SLC Punk, which is
Mm,
like it's about the late '70s, early '80s punk scene in
the
Salt Lake
best.
City. Yeah, but it's kind of like what you were just saying, where it's like you were in this punk band and you wanted to like not dress punk but also appear more punk. It's like that's the end takeaway of SLC Punk is that he goes into law and he kind of has the epiphany like being punk is not what you're wearing, it's the attitude you bring to a non-punk setting.
Yes,
So it's
yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
that's the actual attitude of punk. Like
And like you said too, it has a lot to do with your environment because the reason I ask where you're from is because that has a lot to do with it. Because like I
yeah,
grew up here in the South Bay of Los Angeles, the bands that came out of literally my hometown of Redondo and Hermosa Beach are like the Descendants and Black Flag and Pennywise are like the three big ones. There's many others, but like their whole aesthetic was they were literally wearing gym shorts, Vans, skate shoes, and like a fucked up t-shirt on stage, you know, or no t-shirt.
yeah,
And so like that was the aesthetic we were going for. Like we just wanted to look like we had literally just finished surfing, we skated over here and like now we're playing, you know? But
yeah,
it's intentional too because you not only want to look like those guys, but also because of the environment that you're in, it also shapes you because we actually did just finish surfing and we
yeah,
skated over here, you know? So it's like it's funny because
yeah,
it's functional, but that's also like it seems like that's why fashion comes about because it has a practical use case and then it becomes adopted by the people in that environment. One of the ones that you posted a reel about was the board shirt. What was
yeah.
the name of it?
The Pendleton board shirt.
Pendleton board shirt.
Yeah,
That's how me and my friends dressed all through high school.
yeah,
People always ask, they're like, "Why did you look like a cholo in high school?" And I'm like, "Well, because that was the shit. Like we wore high socks and cut off Dickies shorts and fucking the board flannels, you know, and like
yeah.
that was just the style." And it's funny because it has served a practical purpose. They're very durable for skateboarding, but also we just did it because it was the look.
Yeah. Well, it so much of fashion just stems from use. And I think like that's something that I always try and promote in my content is like the origin story. By the way, the Chicano history videos that I produce have some of the worst backlash of
Really?
yeah, because I post these videos and I get like one of two reactions. It's like one like someone's uncle posting and he has like no videos posted and like it's like
They
a
never do.
divorced dad profile
Yeah.
picture and it's them being like try to wear this shit in my barrio like
Yeah, yeah. And you're like, shut the fuck up. That's not what I'm
well I'm
talking
like
about.
I'm like that's the weirdest like oh you think you're tough wear it in front of my house like that's a
Yeah.
very weird thing to say and then the other one is African American people being like well don't you know that Chicanos got it from black people and I'm like why do you have to like I can make that video
And rock and roll.
I just always get worked up because I'm like that's so not what we're talking about like I'm talking about the origin of something specific but if you because
Yeah.
it's like they don't realize like you can just go into like and then it was this and then it was this and then it just doesn't end like Jonas you made that video about I can't remember what the premise was it was like a brilliantly oversimplified video about like the sea people and like bronze age trading and it
Hmm.
was like this goes into this which is also
Oh,
going into
the
this
classical arms race. I was talking about how the
classical arms
yeah,
race
yeah,
and I
yeah,
was
yeah, yeah.
like I don't think anyone in the comments is understanding like you're covering like someone's doctoral research
Thesis.
like yeah in like a small video that's clear and concise which people who don't make content online like they truly don't understand how difficult that is like it's like a river runs through it if you guys have seen that movie where have you seen that movie
I haven't. I
I have
haven't.
not.
okay it's brilliant but it's I think it's Tim Robbins and Brad Pitt but the first part of the movie it's about these boys and their dad is a like he's like a Presbyterian pastor and he's also their teacher and the whole first part of the movie is they're little boys and he's making these boys write essays and they bring the
Based.
essays to their dad and then he goes great now write it in half so then they
Hmm.
rewrite the essay in half and then they basically boil it down to one paragraph and he's like that's basically how you create a coherent thought is the
I
ability
love
to
that.
explain something simply and quick
Yeah.
but
It's
yeah
hard. It's hard. But it is valuable too. Like making content, obviously. Um, for short form, you kind of have to shoot for 3 minutes because that's what Instagram's limit is to show to
yeah
new people is 3 minutes.
And
You can
YouTube Shorts.
yes, yeah, and you
Hmm.
can speed it up. You know, sometimes I'll put like a 1.1, but you generally have to shoot for that length and especially with history, as both of you guys know, there's just so many rabbit holes. If you just went nonstop, you would be talking about the history the rest of your life until you died, and you wouldn't finish
Oh
the
yeah.
subject. It's just you really have to do pick and choose what you cover and how you progress to make sure that you get the point across.
Hmm.
But people will always say, well, you forgot about this. So what about
Oh my
this?
God.
And
Yeah.
there's only so much you can do. So it's a balance of explaining what needs to be explained while still making it accessible for the average person. So
Yeah.
I have come to the conclusion because you're right, like it is, you have to get your point across in less than 3 minutes, and there's some things that are going to be left out, and you have to make it as exciting and informative as possible, while kind of like Dane and I have, we talked about this on, or you talked about this on your YouTube video about HBO's Rome, but authenticity versus
Classic.
accuracy. It's like you really got to hit the like core truth of it. You're not going to be able to fit everything. If you want to fit everything, you can go watch my 40-minute YouTube video. I'm not going to
Yeah.
fit it in this 3-minute reel. And so I have made a rule that when people say, well, what about, I don't respond to that comment. I will never respond to that comment, because you'll see it in a later video, or you can find it on YouTube.
I always just say post an outfit. I'm like post a fit. Like I'm
There
like,
you
let's
go.
see your fit right now. Let's see Paul Allen's fit. It's
fair,
like,
fair enough.
yeah,
It's
Yeah.
also, I mean, people have personal attachments to certain things, and especially if you're doing fashion in so recent of history that people
Mhm.
still feel a personal, like you said, there's people who feel
Yeah.
like that's like their style, and so they feel
yeah.
maybe a little bit more attached than is
Especially when
reasonable.
ethnicity is behind it.
Yeah, I think, well, the weird part for me, like, I posted this video. I think it was like the first really controversial video that I posted. And it was like, the essence of it was like, Chicano style is like one of the best subcultures to draw inspiration from if you're
Mm.
trying to dress well. Because I really believe that.
Because they
And I,
maintained a lot of the features of sort of like vintage fashion. Is that why?
well, I mean, they really incorporated like workwear into the presentable side of things. Like
Mm.
they're wearing like pressed chinos, which like
Right.
they adopted from their family members who were working in labor unions, and then they would
Right.
come home and it was like, oh, the work uniform. Or like they were using like military belts because a lot of their dads were in World War II and they came home and they had their dress uniforms, and it was just like kind of like a, add on to that. But I mean, like, at its root, everything is like from somewhere else. Like that, there's that quote that's like, you were in history, you were either part of an empire or part of someone else's. Like, I'm
Mm.
maybe butcher that, but I think like that's true even down to something as micro as how you dress. Like, I always see this thing about like, I mean, I remember back in like 2016, I was in college in 2016, and there was this whole thing online about how dreadlocks were a specifically black fashion thing. Like it was like a strictly African fashion trend. And people were like, I don't know if that's true, but I always thought it was weird that like you're wearing a t-shirt. But it's
Mhm.
like, were you in the military in the 40s when they ruled these out? No. So it's like that thing of like, can't you just be stoked on like you're building on something? Like, isn't that
Right.
cool? They're incorporating it on their own. But I mean, as much as I'm bitching about Chicano people, there's no one in my videos more upset at me than like greasers. Those
Interesting.
Really?
dudes that are cosplaying the 50s every day, and it's never like they're dressing truly to the 50s. It's like they're dressing to the Outsiders, which is it's a movie of the 80s about the 50s. So it's like the
Right.
That
50s through
It's a parody of a parody.
it's
Yeah,
like
simulacrum.
well,
Yeah.
their proportions are strictly 1980s. Like if you watch The Goonies, which takes place in the 80s, they're dressed like those characters. But then they're
Mhm.
like, this is the 50s. And I'm like, Google is free. You can look
Yeah.
this shit up. Like, don't rely on that. I don't know. But they go off. They're like, I'm wearing a costume. If you wear it every day, it's not a costume. I'm like, all right,
Yeah,
sure,
exactly.
I guess. I'm like,
It-
you are wearing a fedora.
That's something interesting about your content is the idea of like trying to copy versus like authentically tapping into what made the style the style. And that's not something the average person thinks about. That's not something I would think about, right? Like
No,
about
probably not.
proportions and why people in those eras dressed the way they did versus just trying to ape the style. You think of the 50s of greasers, obviously greasing their hair and the jackets, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I never have thought, at least with them specifically, I do some of this with like historical military fashion, but I never think like, why did they dress that way? And what about their style actually made it the style? So I think it is fascinating to approach it from a perspective of proportions and these finer details that I just think are lost on a lot of people.
Well, proportion is like such a reflection of use. Like the reason why so many like riding jackets are cropped is because you're sitting in a certain position. You know, it's like the reason why certain boots are the length that they are, or the reason why certain insignias or colors are worn on military uniforms. It all stems from purpose and reason. There's I don't know if you guys are familiar with Wrangler Star. He's a YouTuber who makes like amazing.
Sounds familiar.
He was a
Yeah, it does.
wildland forest firefighter, and he does like shed knowledge, like how to repair an axe head type stuff. But I remember he had a really unorthodox post where he posted his closet, and it was like 10 grand worth of selvage denim pieces from a brand called Ironheart. They make clothing in Japan that are for motorcycle riders. They're like crazy durable. But he said in the video, like, this is unorthodox for me, but the reason why I bought these really nice clothes that are going to fade over time and they're really durable is because clothing is your first tool. And he's like, people don't think about that. They don't think about how clothing is their first tool. I'm like, that's so true. I'm like, it's the first protective layer of your
Yeah.
entire life. And it's not just protective physically, but it's also in a way, like we were talking about Chicanos, or we were talking about militaries. It is a form of honor, or not honor, armor that you wear.
Mm.
It's like kind of a soul protector, if you will. It's
Yeah,
like they are
yeah.
not seeing your exposed naked body. It's something that you use to cover up. It's kind of a different way of looking at it. But the whole
Yeah.
thing about proportions, it's like back in the day, like even up until the 1960s and 70s, it was super common for people to be like, yeah, talk to my tailor. Like they had a tailor who they would take their clothes to off the rack. They'd go straight to their tailor, and their tailor would say, okay, we have to make this fit your body.
Right.
You're not working to fit the clothing. But somewhere along the way, most Americans lost their dignity, and they just kind of don't think about dress in that way anymore. And that's something that I'm really trying to like promote in my content, is like the mindfulness of the first thing you do in the day, which is like get dressed.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
Something for me that kind of changed my perspective with how I dressed. Growing up, I went to a private school for a lot of youth, so we had to wear uniforms, and they were collared shirts and slacks. And I didn't like that because I was a kid. I wanted to wear my Minecraft shirt. But but then as I've gotten older, there are days where like I noticed if I would wear like sweatpants and a hoodie or even like a bathrobe, if I wore a bathrobe, that's why I don't have a bathrobe anymore. If I put on my bathrobe in the morning, I'm not going to do anything productive for hours because I'm comfortable. I'm like sitting in my freaking bathrobe. I'm not in the like go kind of thing. But if
Mode.
I like
Yeah.
take the time to put on like a decent shirt, decent pants, put on some jewelry even, I all of a sudden feel more energetic and productive and like I want to actually go do and accomplish things. So I think that intentionality is really important. Like, of course, if you're going to the gym, right? What do you
Yeah.
put on? You put on gym clothes that'll help you move and accomplish your lifts. But it should also be your day to day. It's like, what are you trying to do for the day? What makes you feel the best, look the best, and get you in the right mindset? So it's just
Yeah.
a different way of approaching what you put on. It's like, don't just throw on the closest shirt that you've got. Why are you putting on that shirt? What's the reason? I think that's
What are
really
you
fascinating.
LARPing as today?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
What are you LARPing as?
dare we LARP as someone more confident than ourselves? Well, I'm like, you're basically quoting Marcus Aurelius, where he's like, I want to lay in bed all day, but if I can't, I have work to do. And it's
Right.
like, I shouldn't be able to relate to this, but I do. Yeah, but that's literally it. It's like the functionality, it can't be detached from what you're doing. It kind of has to play an important role. But yeah, I had a lot of friends who had that same thing growing up. There was a charter school, so we would wait
Okay.
for our friends to get out of school, but it wasn't like, oh, they're on their way to hang out. They have to go change first.
Yeah.
And it was like, what? It's like they don't want to wear their polo and khakis to
Yeah.
go
Ironically,
skate.
I love polos now and
Yeah.
khakis.
Yeah.
It's funny how it works out.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, and it's when you talk about history too, with fashion, I don't think people understand how important and how far things go back. Like the necktie, it comes from, if you go back far enough, it comes from Croatian mercenaries in the French army in like 1700.
It's a deep cut.
Yeah, yeah, and that's, you think of it as a business tie. Everyone has to wear a business tie in the office, you think, but it was military wear, and it went through all of these evolutions and all these things. So it's when you start looking at pieces of fashion that way, it kind of opens up a whole new world of like what what am I going to put on? How did it get to me? And
Yeah.
what can I do with it?
Well, didn't Harry make that video about leather jackets? That's the reason why guys
Yes,
love leather jackets. It's our
he
last
did.
connection to the step.
Yes.
Yep.
And
Yes.
I'm like, we yearn for the fields. We yearn for the leather jackets. It's like that is kind of true in a weird way. I can't find a logical way to disagree with this. Like I kind of think he's straight up on the money. So yeah, I don't know. I have been trying to find more ways to do the long form videos, but I find that people get lost in the weeds when it comes to like I watch your guys' videos and you're able to just like keep the hook going for so long. And I don't know what the thing is, if it's like the visuals or what, like if you guys write scripts, I don't know, but it's like
Mhm.
it's so engaging and I feel like when it comes to like my audience, they like tap out somewhere. They kind of like lose the like what is this about? And it's like damn,
I think
I guess I kind of have to keep making those like sucker punch 10-second clips.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
you can definitely like venture out because I did notice that a lot of your reels were like in the maybe like 10 to 15 second range where you're just sort of like touching on something. It's almost like a hook, one or two sentence explanation. And then like honestly, for a lot of people, that's enough to get them thinking and to get them to
Yeah.
be like, "Huh, I never really thought about it that way." And maybe that plants a seed that makes them kind of do their own research. For
Hmm.
me, when it comes to the videos that I'm trying to make, I feel like I always am taking like a concept, like the one that you brought up earlier about like the classical arms race, that sort of thing. That came about because I was thinking of the fact that like um when we move through history, like in the same way that we move through philosophy or mythology, like all these things, we're always building off of one another. We're always coming from something else that somebody did right, but there was always like, there was quite literally like a chink in the armor. There was just something that wasn't satisfying every need. So then somebody tries to satisfy that need. And then you get to the point where like maybe you've done a little bit too much and now the people who are doing less are outclassing you. And then you have to adapt to that too, you know? And so I think for me, when I was like writing that video, I was making sure that every single thing that I touched on had a direct connection to what I just said. And I know, like for me personally, I really love that you mentioned earlier the name. I forget the name of the movie with what was it?
A river runs through it.
River runs through it.
Yeah.
That was exactly my experience. I got a bachelor's degree in philosophy, and one of
Nice.
the first things that like we were taught when I got to UCLA that they didn't really touch on in community college was like when you're writing an essay, length is not your friend. Like accuracy, precision with your words. Like, how can you get your point across in as few words as possible? And I would write essays sometimes, and I'd be like, oh, like I'm one page over the limit? Is that and they're like, no. And I'm like, okay, shit. Now I'm gonna have to, but it really teaches you to like boil things down. And it's like, if you can't explain it simply enough, then you don't know it well enough. And
Yeah.
so I think that tying that in with the fact that one, people's attention spans are shorter, so you want to keep it as concise as possible. But also two, just make sure that the next thing that you're saying is directly connected to what you just said, so that you're not going off on long tangents and having to be like, but anyways, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think
No.
that's the key.
Yeah.
It's
Definitely.
it's a different game for sure. 'Cause, growing in high school, I was essay writing was always my strength. Writing in general has always been a good strength of mine. But
Hmm.
when you're writing in school, you kind of have a captive audience because your teacher has to read your paper.
Has to read it. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
so and
yeah.
so our structure is kind of built off, it's the classic like you open with a hook and then you have your thesis
Exposition.
statement,
Yeah.
then your supporting, and then the conclusion. And so a lot of my videos, especially when I first started doing these longer form, I really put a lot of emphasis in the conclusion because that's where you tie everything together.
Hmm.
But your audience is not a captive audience. They're
Hmm.
not grading your paper. They don't have to watch the whole thing. And most of them
Yeah.
will watch 5 to 10 seconds. The analytics, that's just how it is.
Then they like
Yeah.
it and did.
It's
Yeah.
interesting. You have to like tease the conclusion in the
Yep.
hook or
Yep.
right after the hook, because it's like
Yeah.
that's the one thing that I've noticed when I first started posting on TikTok like a year and a half ago. I would post these like 5 to 6 minute philosophical, just short essays basically, where I would just kind of like riff on something that I wrote about in school because I just like knew it well. And I noticed that I would lose people because I would give them the hook and I would give them the intro, but I wouldn't tell them why I'm telling this story, and then people are just gone. And once I started giving away the like answer in the beginning of the video and making people go, "Wait, why is that the case? Like, what are you talking about?" Then
Yeah.
people are hooked. Like that's a hook in its own. And it's interesting because it really does go against like what we were taught in school, where it's like you've got to build up to it. It's like, no, give away all of the value in the beginning of the video. Like, people want to consume content. So
Yes.
if they find something where they're like, wait, I either vehemently agree with this or disagree with this in the very beginning, you've got them. Like, they will
Yeah.
listen to your video. And that's obviously where you get the comments where people will be like, they'll state your conclusion in the comments, and it's just so annoying because it's like, you didn't watch the entire video. You know that they just watched the hook and they assumed, which is fine. It's good engagement. But yeah, it is really interesting. And it's one of the reasons that I was drawn to making long form, truly long form YouTube videos in the first
Yeah.
place, was because I love the TikTok, Instagram sort of shorts and stuff, but I am that kind of person that's like, when somebody says you left this out, I'm like, I know, and I want to correct that. I want to prove to you that I know what I'm talking about. So I make the 30-minute video. But it is an art trying to make that 30-minute video into a 3-minute video, and that's something that I think has like really sharpened my creative writing. And I think that with time, especially for your content, like, because when you're going through fashion and history, like, you can always connect it back to the last thing. Like, what did this jacket come from? Well, it came from this jacket. Well, why did that come about? Oh, because of these people. And so it's like, it's just constantly building off of things. But
Yeah.
yeah, giving away the end conclusion in the first 10 seconds, I think, is crucial.
And you always have to like box yourself in too. Like what you're
Unfortunately.
saying, like you do have to box yourself in. Like
Yep.
for a little while there, I was trying to like make these kind of videos about like different armies uniforms,
Hmm.
and it had like a very engaging response with like a very small crowd. Like it was
Right.
like I was hitting I was hitting the engagement, but I wasn't hitting the like range. Like
Hmm.
it wasn't showing up for everyone. It was showing up for the people who like genuinely look up like what was this army's uniform in like this war,
Yeah.
and it's like
And like, that's okay sometimes. That's definitely good to just, I think, like, people will send me like recommend, they're like, you should talk about this. And I'm like,
yeah,
well, if it doesn't interest me in any way, or if there's not something that like is gripping me, I'm not gonna suffer through writing a script just for the sake of writing. Like, I chose this avenue of content creation because I want to talk about what I want to talk about. And you know, if I'm just pandering to an audience, I am no better than somebody with a 9 to 5. And so I think that you have to, which I still have, but you have to be true to yourself, like you said, like you've got to just talk about the things that you want to. But also, I think finding ways that you can connect what you like into a thing that everybody should care about, like those are the videos that for me hit 1 million views, are the ones where I'm talking about something that is like deeply meaningful to me, but it's like, here's why it should be meaningful to you. And I think especially with
That's
fashion, like, you know what I'm talking about? That's something that I think, like Dane, you were kind of talking about earlier, is like we're losing this ability. Like men just don't dress themselves, or even just people today, they just don't dress themselves. And
yeah,
so like you can bring
exactly.
up something from history and not only be like, this is why vintage fashion is better than modern fashion, but this is why it pertains to you. This is why you should care. This is why it matters to you. And obviously that's going to matter to people, and they're going to
I should
stick
just
around and want to
start
find out.
gaslighting people, being like, "Aren't cloaks sick?"
Right.
Like trying to like resurrect these things that are like we should be wearing full on capes. Like, why did we stop doing that? Like,
That's
Yeah,
that's a great
we
topic because
yeah,
yep.
it gives you an excuse because the medieval era is a little bit back in vogue.
yeah,
People, you start with that and then you explore like the history of capes and cloaks, and then it's like, is there room for this in the modern age? Like, can we bring this forward? That
Hmm.
yeah, it's almost like storytelling, right? Like you've
Yes.
turned what you're interested in into a narrative, and in that way it makes it matter to the audience. And sometimes I'll be honest, I mean, I pull this tactic from time to time where I will just shamelessly grab something popular and just totally bait and switch, right?
Like
Like,
Timothy
yeah.
Chalamet.
yeah,
This
yes,
is
yes, I'll grab the latest headline. And it's funny, I never like tailor the content specifically to the hook. When I do those, at least I have the history script written. It's just then it's like, oh, I see some news about freaking clavicular, and I'm like, oh, I can just staple that onto the front, get a bunch of
yeah,
people here. Well, now all of a sudden they're watching a video about like medieval warfare or something, and
yeah.
it's
Get
I
funny
think
how
get
many people stay, and they're like, wow, I didn't think I'd watch this whole thing, and now here I am.
I
And
think one of the first
it
videos
works.
I think one of the first videos I saw of yours was when you were talking about the Talk to a podcast,
Yeah, that
and
one
how
got five
that was like
million something views, and it was about Renaissance
naval
naval
warfare.
warfare, and
yes,
it had nothing to do with her, of course, but the
Yeah.
bit just kind of worked. And I think so. Some people push back and say like, "Oh, you shouldn't devalue the content like that." And for me, if you're not actually taking things out that you would say otherwise, it's not really devaluing it. I didn't change the script other than the front and the end. It would have been the same script if I left out the references to her. So if it's attracting new people and getting people interested in history that otherwise wouldn't be, I don't see a problem with it.
No,
Whatever you
it's
can
a
do
brilliant,
to
yeah, tactic.
bring people into your content and get them a right, give them a little story to be a part of, I think is absolutely um, you should do. And
yeah. Well, I mean, my world, I guess, like online, there's such interesting communities of creators. Like, I'm the co-founder of this group called Indigoons, where it's like 60 different menswear creators that span from like vintage lovers all the way through like denim heads and like people that are interested in like runway fashion, but we all are in this like collective group together. And I think between us all, there's like hundreds of thousands of followers. And we just met recently in LA for an event that we held at like a
yeah,
reputable
I
denim.
saw that.
Yeah, but it is interesting that like you guys fall into this like very um niche clean community of, and clean I mean just like you guys have very distinctive styles. It's very like you guys aren't like style biting. You guys have like
Mm.
like very unique places in your content. And like I wish so badly sometimes that I was in a more thought-provoked community. No shot at them. Like, I think we all kind of want to do and say and talk about the things that we want, but my background is in history and political science. I have a degree in history. My minor was political science, but I was involved in politics all throughout college. And I remember I saw, I mean, not to like change the subject, but kind of on point rather, is like Dane made a video when like Charlie Kirk was killed, and it was like such a great explanation of the reactions people were having to it, about how, I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but you kind of touched on like the people who are stoked about this are stoked that someone did their dirty work for them. And
Right.
I'm not a fan of Charlie Kirk. I just like, I'm going to say, like, I didn't watch a lot of his content and I
I
didn't
said the
care
same
to.
thing, and I
But I was
received a
like,
lot of backlash.
there's a lot of philosophy and deep thinking afoot. There's a lot to think about, you know, and whether you like the guy or not, but I'm like, you can separate yourself from that. I was trying recently, I was seeing, especially around the No Kings protest, that a lot of my fellow creators in the menswear space were taking their time to go on their stories or what have you to post about their thoughts on ice, and it was very surface level, and I could tell that they were reposting posts that were like created by billionaires. Like these posts were like created from foundations that were like produced from billionaires, and they're not thinking like, am I part of a psyop? Like, they're not thinking about that. They're just like posting it. And they were saying this thing over and over, which was like, fashion is political. And I really wanted to make a post that was like, clothing is not intrinsically political. Like,
Hmm.
a piece of clothing on the floor means nothing to the universe. It is without meaning. But human beings give clothing meaning. Humans are political. I wanted to take that route, but you know, I just didn't feel like my audience was the type of audience that enjoyed the philosophical sideline of
Huh.
history
I
and
I
politics in fashion. So I was
I
just kind of
completely
like,
hear that. I
yeah,
think the main thing to remember is that, like, yes, you should care about your audience. Obviously, I take my audience into account when I am making videos, but at the same time, it's another one of those things where it's like, if your audience is the thing that you're creating content for, you have a boss now. You have a boss that you're answering to. And that's not what this is about. Like, we're creating content to reach as wide of an audience as possible, to bring them in and teach them something or educate them on something or even inspire them in some way to the things that we think are important. And your audience is literally the entire world. So, like, the reason that we make videos under 3 minutes is so that they'll hit the explore page and so that new audiences will see them. So, one, I would say, don't be afraid to step outside the box, because you will always be finding constantly new audiences. Yeah, go ahead.
I probably do need to add this though. It's
Mhm.
not that I didn't think my followers would like it. I think that I didn't want to box myself into being a political guy.
Well, that's why when Dane and I created this
Yeah.
podcast, we were
Yeah.
like,
I'm
it's
like,
so many people comment, and they'll be like, why don't you talk about like the current events, or like, why don't you actually state your opinion on what it's like, because that's not what this is about.
yeah,
You can infer what I believe and what my worldview is based off of my beliefs about the things that I will tell you that I think are important.
yeah.
And I think that just stating your political opinion or giving an inquiry on something that, let's be honest, you're probably pretty uneducated about. I know I am when it comes to a lot of political issues. Like, that's just not my place to be telling people what to think. I am simply guiding people towards what I think is important and what I think is true. And if
Yeah,
that shapes your worldview, all the better. Like, I don't need to be telling you what to think. I am only telling you the truth, and then you can infer beliefs based off of that.
for sure.
There's a great moment. My favorite director, David Lynch. I'm not sure if you guys are aware.
Big
For
fan.
sure.
He had an interview, and someone asked him a question, like, what, I think it was, what is your most spiritual movie? And he said Eraserhead. And the interviewer goes, elaborate on that. And he just goes, no.
No.
And it's like and he said before, like, I'm paraphrasing here, it's something along the lines of like, don't ask me to explain the movie. Watch the movie. That's the
Yeah.
explanation. That's what
Well,
I'm
it's
saying.
that Sydney Sweeney interview meme where she's
Yeah.
like, maybe you shouldn't be like, shouldn't you like apologize? She's like, when I have something to say, I'll say it.
Yeah,
I don't have
it's-
anything to say right now.
You're
right.
What
Yeah.
I put out there as a creative is what I value and what I think, and there's different layers to it too. Like if someone comes to watch a cool history video and they're just like, oh, that's cool. That's fine. There's more to it for me that I put in.
Always.
But
Yeah.
I don't need. Not everyone in the audience needs to tap into that. They can take their own takeaways, have their own interpretations. I'm glad if anyone enjoys what I do, no matter why they enjoy it. But yeah, it's you have to be comfortable, I think, as a creator, especially in this kind of social media environment, in
Yeah.
not having to explain yourself 24/7 and
Mhm.
answer
For sure.
everybody's demands and curiosities. And
I mean,
it's-
please go ahead.
I will say, people get really investigative. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. They really like to dig in, especially when there's a little
Yeah.
bit of mystery. And I like to leave some things up to interpretation. And sometimes I have conflicting thoughts on things. Like I don't even fully agree with myself on everything.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Or
I
even
don't
last
have-
year.
So it's like,
That's what growth is.
yeah. So some
It's like-
people really want to they really want to know exactly what is going through your head. And it's like, that's not my project. That's
Mhm.
some people, that is their project, and that's fine. And they do what they do there. But that is not what I
Yeah.
am here to do. So I think you have to take what you have a passion for
Yeah.
and your beliefs and just whatever you think is valuable to put out for yourself and for others, I think is the most important thing to focus on.
You have to remember too that a lot of times audiences, because we're in this sort of like age of parasocial relationships where you might know literally everything about a creator or as much as they're willing to share, but they don't know anything about you, and you're sort of trying to infer your connection to that person merely based off of what they're portraying. And like I get messages all the time about exactly what I believe, and like, your video was very much like this. Do you believe in this? And I got this message from this guy the other day, and he goes, "Hey man, love your content, but respectfully, I don't like the fact that you are constantly talking about pagan themes and you talk about the gods and stuff, but you don't tell us which gods you believe in, and you don't give the credit to the pagan gods. You just talk about their the morality and the blah blah blah." And I'm like, which gods do you want me to believe in? Like, what?
Yeah.
This is very clearly just you being like, I have a belief that I think you might believe too, and I want to know that I'm correct. What is it? And I'm like, I'm not telling you.
I live in a place, like I live in Utah, so
Yeah.
I'm surrounded by people that are Mormon. And it's weird because I have a degree in Mormon history. And it's like, so often when these conversations come about, it becomes blatantly apparent how much people don't seem to know about their own origin stories. And I find that like so troubling. I mean, I get this all the time, like where I live, that when I tell people, I was in Mormon history and I had colleagues that were, they were Mormon and they were learning all about Mormon history and they were still Mormon. And I would get these kind of like atheist chads being like, well, if they learned about it, wouldn't they leave it? And I'm like, I'm American. I know the whole history of this country, good, bad, ugly, and I'm still proud about it. I still love being from my country.
Mhm.
And it's like, it's to me like a very, like the idea of living your life without nuance is just like so weird to me. Like living this like black and white, there is no nuance. Like that is so strange. I don't
Because
understand.
then you're
it.
accepting somebody else's mythology. You're not going based off of your own views. You're going based off of what people tell you. It's like you have to believe this thing or you have to believe this thing, and you have to be one person or the other. And it's
Yeah.
like, no, I don't want to, and I'm not going to.
Yeah, I do love when you guys like talk about like when you go into depth about different deities and different religions, it's like very enlightening. Like just as a watcher and now being on, I love it. I think
It's
it's
Yeah.
like very enriching because like both you and Dane were saying, it's like your audiences probably want you to uh affirm their beliefs. They want
Yes,
you to
exactly.
affirm, but that's not your role. But this type of forum does give you a little bit of a moment to, be Jonas and Dane
Hmm.
outside of the persona of your profiles,
Hmm.
which is
Hmm.
very
yes.
cool. It's a very cool opportunity, you know.
I
Yeah.
I was I have been playing with a script idea, but I'll kind of spoil it here a little bit. This idea that it's very hard now to have like objective curiosity about things. Like you cannot just be interested in something purely because you want to know more about it. It has to, no matter what it is, someone will find some way to link it to their beliefs and their ideologies or what have you, and that will shape their perception. And it's like you can't just talk about it like as like a this is a cool thing, I want to know all about it, so I researched it. Here it
Now you're
is.
now you're on a watch list.
Yeah,
Yeah.
now it's like you got people who love it and they're like mad that you said something negative, and you have people who hate it and they're mad that you didn't put it in the worst light, and it can be very hard to just like have genuine interests in things without strong personal attachment. And when Jonas said the parasocial thing, I think that's what gets people so crazy on the internet is they start taking everything and attaching it to their identity. And so it becomes very personal issues of things that really like Jonas, I see this all the time, especially for you when you talk about ancient history and people get very,
Yeah.
very upset. And
They think I have an agenda.
and it's like, guys, I'm sorry. It's obviously it's part of your history and it's a part of our history. So it's
Yeah.
important, but it's also like you're not literally back then. We're not it's like you gotta
Yes.
have some detachment from it
I
and
do
just be
almost love
able.
those comments on certain history videos when people are like, "Oh, were you there?" Like I love that where it's like, they wouldn't have thought that." It's like, "Oh, were you there?" It's like,
Dude, even freaking when I talk about like one of the most objective things, which is like military technology, like
yeah,
a weapon
Yeah.
does what it does. And people they're like, well, crossbows are better because blah, blah. And I'm like, dude, how do you care this much about which weapon is better? You're not a
it was that
medieval
trebuchet
soldier.
versus catapult like
Yes,
meme
it's
war
like
that was.
you're not living and dying by your weapon. Why do you have such a strong opinion? Like you can have favorites, of course, and have some fun,
Yeah,
but it's people are just looking
big
for
killage guy,
anything.
by the way. Big killage fan right here.
uh, um, but
Yeah.
for a creator, you have to be able to just shrug a lot of this parasocial attachment off, and you have to be willing, I think, to a degree, even when your own audience might get upset. But also, it's like the negative always stands out more, right? Because a lot of people will just like your video and not say anything. But then the one hate
Yes.
comment stands out because it's like the one person, the vocal
Yeah.
minority, if you will.
Oh
So
yeah.
it's sometimes you have to step back and say, this seems more controversial, but when you actually look at the average audience member, it really is less, people are less mad at you than it would appear from who actually speaks up. So it's
Yeah.
always important to keep in mind that the commenters, especially the hate commenters, tend to be like the outliers of people.
Well, it's
Yeah.
because they can't
Yeah.
dislike your video. All they can do is comment and counter signal you.
Right.
Like I noticed
Well,
this
it's
especially on
engagement all the same.
Yeah,
it's
Like
yeah, it's
engagement all the
engagement.
same and it
It's
all
doesn't
the
matter.
same.
And it's like I remember because I started posting on TikTok November 2024 and I was just doing TikTok for a while and I didn't want to post on Instagram because I had my friends from high school and college on there and I'm like they're gonna think I'm cringe and stuff, and then I was like, wait, no, they're gonna think I'm cringe, that's cool. And so then I started posting them, and very recently, because a couple of my friends had sent me videos of like my videos that other people had posted on their Twitter accounts or X, and they were like blowing up, getting like thousands of likes and retweets and stuff. And I was like, wait, why aren't I posting my videos on there? So then I started doing that, and I was almost discouraged immediately because my following was growing very quickly. I went from like 2,000 to 6,000 followers within like a month on there. And I was getting a lot of likes and retweets, but every single reply is negative. There's very, like, maybe 10% of replies on X are positive. Every other one is people calling me racial slurs
Nice.
or calling me just literally any horrible thing that they can, and completely disagreeing with me. But then and I was almost just like, man, fuck this. This place is toxic as hell. But at the same time, it's like it has 500 likes and 100 retweets. Why aren't I focusing on the fact that 500 people really fucked with this and then 5 people want my head? Like, who cares?
I was just thinking about this too. Like, I was talking about it with my wife, that I was like, the fact that you even have, like, if you're standing in a room full of 500 people,
Uh-huh.
like, that's a lot of people in one
And they're
room.
clapping.
You're just like, whoa. But then you have these videos that reach like 1 million views. And you're like, 1 million people have seen my face. That's
Literally insane.
how unnatural is
Yeah.
that? Like, that's
Yeah.
so weird. And not enough people are talking about how weird that is. Like,
Yeah.
that shouldn't be a thing that happens, but it is to so many people every day.
It's
You
so
know?
overinflated, our idea of reality, because people always talk about 200 view jail on TikTok, and it's like, bro, 200 views is a full college lecture hall, like that are listening to you, and 50 of them stood up and applauded at the end of it. Like, that's really,
Yeah.
really cool.
That's a great way
Don't
of putting it,
discount yourself.
actually. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that's what I think about, because like I think about every time I leave a like on someone's video, that's essentially like if I were to pass by them on the street and they said something like that, I'd be like, hell yeah, love that. I agree. Or I would clap for them if they were on stage. And so you have to remember that people liking your video, even though it may just be something like passive to them, it was them being like, I want to see more of this. I really like this. And yeah, it's very inflated, and people don't take that into account. I think it's a lot of the reasons that we're very depressed in
Yeah.
social media.
Maybe. I was just thinking of something, and I love
Uh-huh.
that this has become like a forum for like content creation.
It
But
has
like
a little bit, yeah.
yeah, but I was going to say earlier, you were talking about I think it was Dane's video about authenticity versus, what was it? You were talking
Accuracy.
about, yeah. And I mean, kind of just to turn it kind of back toward that. I love that idea. And I'm almost through with my Game of Thrones rewatch. After watching Night of the Seven Kingdoms, I was like, damn, I gotta go back and rewatch this shit.
Hmm.
And I'm just like blown away at like it's made up. It's not real,
Hmm.
but for some reason there's just so many little hints at real medieval fashion and real medieval strategy.
Hmm.
They were talking about a siege, and the first thing he says is start digging your trenches.
Hmm.
And I was like, no, yeah, where's the moat? Like, get the moat going. Like, I
Yeah.
love the small little bits, but like when I watched Rome for the first time, I did love that they had kind of like very posh, uppity actors playing the kind of
The
like
aristocracy.
the aristocracy, the higher ups, and they had like Cockney actors
Yep.
like playing the low class gang war dudes. I
Hmm.
thought that's like such an intentional thing. Like
Totally.
Octavian's relationship to Titus Pullo's, it's like such a great or is that the right term
Yeah,
for that? Like
juxtaposition.
juxtaposition
Yeah.
of the same society. Like,
Yeah.
Totally.
just an accent. Like, I love that.
That I just that's what I was trying to get at ultimately, is they like went to the trouble to like try to portray as much depth and nuance as possible, even if it wasn't all like correct. Because
True.
how can you, we weren't living back then. There's not enough information for it to ever be perfect, right? But they tried to show that how multidimensional Roman society was at the time. And for example, like, yeah, they have the upper class people playing by more posh, if you will, or sophisticated.
It's not the proletariat, is it? It's the
Um,
proletariat.
No, that
No. I'm getting that
there.
mixed. What am I talking about?
What did gosh, what the Roman
Patrician.
patricians. Yes,
Patrician.
yes, patricians, and then the
Yeah,
plebs
and
or
then
the
the
commoners.
plebeians. Yeah.
Yeah, and even
Thank
then
you,
the
Jonas.
slaves, they
Thank
had
you.
different slaves. Like Caesar's slave is a Greek, and he like talks back to Caesar. He like sass talks him because
Yeah.
Greek slaves, they were kind of these like intellectual like teachers and assistants. Like you could kind he was a slave, but he could kind of like
Yeah,
push
but they
back on
weren't.
his master. But
They also weren't that far removed from like the conquest of Magna Graecia. Like
yeah,
they weren't
exactly.
that far removed from like Greek people literally lived in the boot heel of Italy.
Yeah,
Like that's just something that, like that, and then also when Mark Antony, like they don't show his kind of like historical speech at Caesar's funeral because that's like a very Shakespearean thing, you know.
right.
It's like Henry V's like "We Band of Brothers" speech. It's like I don't know if that's historical. It's definitely historical because Shakespeare wrote it, but I don't know if he said that. But I like that in the show they don't show him do the speech. They just show Chad Antony going home being like they ate that shit up. Like
Yeah, and they show the
Yeah.
crowds. They show like in the tavern, like the soldiers talking about it, and they show the crowds of people throwing things. Like kind of
which
that
is like
show don't tell.
he would have done that. He would have
Yeah.
gone back to his advisors and been like, "You see that shit? Like
Yeah.
they hate Brutus now."
Because we
Yeah.
might not know what he said literally, but we
Yeah.
know what happened because of it. We know
Right.
that
Yes.
Brutus and his conspirators had to leave the city right after because the Roman mob hated them. So it's like whatever Antony said, he did
isn't
it.
that kind of that's kind of like the historical context too? Is like the people didn't know Antony was like a Chad jock like that. Like they saw Antony as like the right hand rock of Caesar's will. Like they kind of saw him as like where there is a Caesar victory, there is an Antony attack. It's kind of like fast forward to like Augustus and Agrippa. It's like Agrippa is not detached from any of these victories, but it's only after, you know, the eventual downfall of Antony that we begin, like the public begins to get this like, what was he really like? What was really going on back then?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
he presented this kind of like, kind of Plato-esque intellectual jock. You know, he's like, I am thinking about, but then behind closed doors, he's just like, as worse, if not worse, than everybody else in his decorum.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I
yeah.
love the show for really highlighting that type of stuff of like, it might not be historically accurate, but at least the essence is there. And it's like other movies, they don't even try to go for either. And it's like, I just hate when those movies are so like beloved. Like I do love Braveheart.
Like
I love
Gladiator
that.
too.
What was that shit, dude?
I
We
don't
joke
know.
in my family. We
Yeah.
joke about it all the time. That like all these like Paul Mescal's like doing a voice. He's like, we have to go to Rome, and then it
Yeah.
just cuts to Denzel Washington being like, he thinks he's Caesar. He's no Caesar. Like he's just doing Denzel in every other movie. He didn't even try to do like.
Yeah.
I love that shit, dude.
But what were you saying about Braveheart? 'Cause I might agree with you.
Just that Braveheart is such a masterclass of directing, writing, storytelling. If you're just objectively looking at it as like a movie made, it's a fantastic movie with a great cast. Like it's that, what's the actor's name? Gleason. It's the dad. He was like Mad Eye Moody.
I know who you're.
He plays like Hamish.
Yes.
Like but it's like they have these like great actors that are like whatever. But in actuality, like it's showing kilts 400 years before kilts were a thing. It's showing like Scottish people living in basic squalor, which is like
They're all
Scottish
dirty
people-
and shit.
they should have been like so offended by that. Like they should have been like,
Yeah.
what the fuck? But like
People don't know their
Outlaw
own
King-
history though.
again, they don't know their own origin story. Like right now there's that, I mean, I'm just going on like whatever, but
Please. That's what
there's
this is
like
for.
a George Washington show coming out, like Young Washington.
Yeah, I've
Have
seen
you guys
ads
seen this?
for that. I see they're
And
giving
they-
away a musket too. I kind of would like to win that musket.
It's cool, but I will say, like in the trailer, they do this like, who is he? And then he's like, my name is George Washington. It's like,
Yeah.
are you gonna talk about him like accidentally starting a world war, like
Yeah.
shooting a messenger, and then he's like, oh fuck, Like,
Yeah.
they're not gonna show that. I'm
They're just
like,
going to show the stuff that everybody knows, because that's the thing. And we've sort of talked about this. We actually talked about this on, was it the last episode that hasn't come out yet? But
Mm.
we were talking about why Hollywood does that. And
Oh
the
yeah,
basic,
yeah, yeah.
right?
Yeah,
The
why
basic
Hollywood
reason.
does like the medieval filter and stuff.
Yeah, so
yeah,
if you watch when you're watching this episode, if you go and watch the last episode, you'll see us talk about it. But essentially, Hollywood is simply trying, the writers, the directors, they are trying to tell their story, and they want to convey it in as efficient of a way as possible without making you go, "What's going on?" It's the reason that all Vikings look like these horribly barbaric people that are just constantly just, and they're angry and they're mean all the time, whereas
they
like
have
the
they have like the side fade.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
like we have no
and
evidence they
it's
ever did that. Like,
it's the reason that the Scottish people in Braveheart are wearing kilts, because it's immediately recognizable. You don't have to watch it and go, "Wait, are these the Scots or are these the English?" Like, you know immediately who is who, and that's all
yeah,
they're doing, is they're trying to make things just so simple for the audience that it doesn't pull them out of the story at all. The problem is that when you get people who are historically literate like ourselves, we see something like that and we go, that doesn't make any fucking sense. Wait, what is going on? You
well,
know?
the movie Outlaw King came later. Like, they
Right.
did Braveheart, then they did Outlaw King, and Outlaw King, I would say it got like such a bad review from the history crowd because they were nitpicking these like little like, well, Loudon Hill actually wasn't da 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 da. But I'm
Hmm.
like, to Dane's point, like, they capture the essence of the wrongs made by Braveheart, which is the colorless medieval. Like, the only people in Braveheart that have like colorful uniforms are like British regulars, but it's like these were they're aristocratic knights, like they're
Hmm.
knighted individuals, like they have family sigils, they had a very colorful life, more colorful than people would like to like give them credit for.
Yep.
And I mean, whether you enjoy the movie or not is beside the point. I just think like Hollywood is better off pursuing the authenticity rather than the accuracy,
Right.
if one is to
I
be
mean,
at the
Shows it over the
forefront.
other.
it's kind of like what we were talking earlier about content creation, right? It's like
Yeah,
we have 3 minutes and we have a broad audience. It's how do we communicate the essence of what we want to teach without devaluing what we want to teach, right?
oh
And
yeah,
Right.
I think movies, there's a level of like criticism where it starts getting into pedantry, where it's like, okay, if the diamond was a little bit to the right, like these really nitpicky details, there starts to get a
yeah,
level of like, okay, that's really history nerd stuff. It's a little bit
yeah.
excessive, but it's like where do you how do you communicate what needs to be communicated without while still like the average person can sit and have a good time and learn something. It's a
Did
it's
you
a
guys
balance. It's a balance.
did you watch that show American Primeval that came out on Netflix?
No, I keep
Mm-mm.
seeing it, but I've been wanting to, but
I
haven't started
it's
it yet.
not
It's
ringing a. I'm gonna look it up real quick. One sec.
it's the director of weirdly, it's the director of Friday Night Lights. Um, was that movie? It's like Lone Survivor. He like did a bunch of these like hyper patriotic movies with Mark Wahlberg. He did like I think he
Mm.
did Deepwater Horizon, but they made this movie about something that happened in Utah with the Mormon militia, that they attacked a caravan of immigrants from or pioneers from Arkansas, and they basically dressed up like Native Americans, and they hired Paiute natives to go attack this caravan, and they murdered like a bunch of people. It's called the Mountain Meadows Massacre. There's like a big deal, like a big memorial for these buried individuals out in the desert in Utah. But the show, instead of focusing on just like this one thing, they incorporate it in this like really dumb attempt at like American Mandalorian. Like, it's like they're showing real history stuff, but then the story is like it's Tim Riggins, it's Taylor Kitsch, it's the dude from Friday Night Lights, but it's like him taking a woman and her son from like Wyoming to Salt Lake City.
Hmm.
And then they carpet bomb history stuff in it, but it doesn't really work. It's
It
like,
doesn't, yeah.
I think that like they were attempting that vibe, but it just falls so flat and it's so disappointing. But I
And
mean,
that's
especially as someone who lives here, I'm like, yo,
to
why is the desert totally uncovered in snow? Like it should be covered in snow right now.
To Jonas's point, a lot of it is like the writers and directors, whatever, they have their story they want to tell about archetype, whatever is their story, and they tend to take like the historical stuff, and that's like the set dressing. That's like the decorations on the cake. But the cake has their own ingredients because, like you said, if they were riffing off the Mandalorian, that's the story he wants to tell. The story
That's the
of
story.
someone,
Yeah.
There's just that shit going
taking
on.
someone,
Like
across.
like edgy anti-hero shepherds vulnerable child from
And that
point
could
A
be
to point B.
that could be
It's
said
like,
in any time in history. That could be said in any setting. It's like that
Yeah.
story doesn't need. There's not a reason for that story necessarily to be in the setting that it is in.
question for you both, and I don't because I didn't watch this unreleased episode, but I was wondering if you had an unlimited budget and you were given a 10 episode miniseries on HBO, what story would you tell that has not been told? And you can hire whoever to cast it. Like, you can cast whoever you want to play whoever you want. Dude, I have thought about so many ideas.
I already know because I'm making.
Okay.
I just made the documentary on YouTube. It's over 90 minutes.
Shit.
Yeah, and if I had a 10 episode series on HBO, I would have been able to do it justice, obviously, because I literally say in the beginning of the video that I think that the period in history that I'm going to cover is worth 10 Hollywood blockbusters, just because of all the awesome stories I was able to pick out of it. But it's essentially the formation of the Goths and their sort of inheritance. People hate when I say inherit because obviously they conquered, but their inheritance of the Western Roman Empire and the establishment of the Visigothic and Ostrogothic kingdoms. And
Yes.
I think that it's not only just one of those things in history that we sort of like glance over because you were taught it in whatever year in high school you learn about the Goths and the fall of Rome and stuff. The sack of Rome, everybody's seen the famous photo of the naked barbarians tearing down statues and stuff. Yeah. And it's
that's not what happens.
Yeah, it's just so much more nuanced in all of these stories of like the Goths, they were very much barbarians, but they were so different from all of the other Germanic peoples in their ability to assimilate and adopt Roman culture to the degree that it would benefit them without losing touch of their like blood and soil roots, for lack of a better word. It's just so fascinating. And I wanted to make a 20-minute video. That was the point, was like the history of the Goths summarized. And I was just like, dude, I can't do that. Like, I would be doing such an injustice. And I've watched other videos on YouTube of people doing a little history of the Goths, and it's like
the entire history of Japan, and it's like 20 minutes.
Yeah, it's like, bro,
it's crazy.
And it's like, yeah, you can make that video. I could have made the video 20 minutes, but that's not the point. I don't want you to understand that, oh, there was a power dynamic here that fell, and this is why they were able to take power. It's like, I want you to know about this guy who said this. Like, I on the last episode, I recite a battle speech that King Totila of the Ostrogoths gives before they finally fight like Belisarius, who's fighting for Justinian. It's like their kind of last stand against
Justinian, absolute Chad.
Against Eastern Roman
absolute
occupation.
Chad of the West.
And the Goths would heavily disagree, but it's one of those things where it's just like, bro, I can't believe I've never heard of this, and I've thought about it every day since I've learned it. And it's like one of those things that it bleeds into like every other aspect of life. Like, I'm making a new series right now about the Islamic conquest of Iberia and the Spanish Reconquista, and it's like not only just one of the most fascinating stories ever because it tells like the geopolitical religious situation in Spain and Portugal, why they're so vehemently Christian, why the conquistadors were the way that they were, these sorts of things, even though it's like hundreds of years before. But it's so pertinent to the sort of like, I hate to get a little political, but obviously there's an immigration problem in Europe today.
Yeah.
And
yes, there is.
It's very reminiscent it's very reminiscent without me getting too political about it on what
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
happened with the Islamic invasions.
Well, it's like that. It's like history doesn't repeat itself, but it
But it rhymed.
rhymes. Yeah,
Yes.
and
And
it's
I think it's one of those stories that like I don't even have to say this is similar to what's going on today. I might say that in the video. I'm probably not going to, but it's going to be one of those things that people are going to watch it, and I really hope that if they're aware enough, they're going to be like, "Holy fucking shit, it's the same thing." Oh
well,
my God, you know?
Harry again just did that video where he was like, all these people are talking about like Trump is seeing himself as a king, and he's like, you guys are the Confederates. Like you're
Yes.
not
Yeah,
seeing the
yeah,
connection.
that was a great video, by the
And I
way.
was like,
Mhm.
I have been making that point to people who didn't care to hear it for so long, where I'm like, you're trying to justify having like a slave class living in America for like
Yes,
cheap labor and like,
literally,
and I'm like, what?
literally.
I'm like, don't you want people to like earn a fair wage and like be a citizen and like have safety instead of being like taken advantage of in like a workspace environment?
And
But it's
being at
like,
the risk of being deported at any time because they're
yeah,
still like illegal and it's a crime and like, don't you
it's
want safety for
unethical.
these people? I do. I want safety for everyone involved. But again, not trying to get too political.
Well,
But
okay, I was gonna say this though. What you were talking about, you could literally make you could make a 3-season, like 10 episodes a season HBO series, eerily reminiscent of Game of Thrones, but it's just the Goths moving into Iberia.
just that.
Because
Yeah.
you still had at the time, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like when the Goths move into Iberia, you still have Iberians, you still have Celts, you still have Hispania Romans.
And you
You
also have
have
other Germanic tribes like the Suebi and the Alemanni.
you have North African tribes that are like basically
Again,
like
yeah,
yeah,
for
yeah, yeah.
immediate. Mhm.
You have like the remnant like the descendants of the Carthaginians that are just
Mhm.
living scattered amongst that. It's like that time period and those interactions you can make.
That's
It's
that's the
crazy.
thing is like that I wanted to make like a 20-30 minute video on it, but as I started writing it, I was like, I need a 20-30 minute video alone on the demographic of Iberia at the time so that people understand what we're coming into. Because it didn't get covered necessarily in the Goths video because I was focused on the Gothic peoples themselves, but it's like because you know people always assume because there was an Islamic invasion into Iberia and it was essentially the Arabs had created mercenary bands out of the um, ancestrals, not the native North African populations, the Berbers as they were
Mm-hmm.
referred to, um, and they are the ones who invade. And then people are like, well, weren't there North Africans in Spain and Portugal already? And it's like, first of all, pre-Islamic, first of all, thousands of years earlier, and third of all, like, you
First of
know,
all,
there's
had their own gods.
yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah. It's
yeah.
like it's one of those things. They're called the Amazigh people or Amazigh people. I can't remember exactly how it's pronounced. But that was the first thing that I was so fascinated with is like there's so many. Who are they? The Amazigh? Are they the Berbers? Are they the Moors? Are they the Muslims? Like who are these people? And you realize there's different layers to all of these things. They're all carrying different titles because they mean different things for different, whether it's religious or ethnic or political, that sort of thing. And so I'm like I need to cover this because it needs to make sense because every other this is honestly and this, you guys can take this and people who are in the audience listening as well, like if you want to create really great content, what I do is I find a topic that I'm interested in, I go on YouTube, I consume all of the videos on that subject and I go, here's what they didn't say, here's what everybody left out, this is the story that people aren't telling because I'm amazed that this is not out there. Like a lot of this is the reason that I made this history of the Goths. There's 10 videos on the history of the Goths. They all left this shit out. And I'm like, how could you do that? It's such an injustice. And then you make that, and now yours is the only video out there that has it.
It's really fascinating that now that you brought up like the Amazighs,
Hmm.
the Berbers and everything. I did a little bit of a video on the North Africans after the collapse of the Western Roman Empire, the Maro-Roman Kingdom,
Right.
Maurentian. And it was like, that's the thing. It was like, we think of the fall of the Roman Empire in the West, and we think of Italy primarily, and then a little bit Gaul and Britain. But it's like,
North
this,
Africa was all of that too.
it's still, it's like, we kind of forget about them until the Muslim conquest and until they go into Spain. But it's like, there's hundreds of years of history that I didn't know what went on down there. I
Yeah,
was
but
like,
it sets
what
up
happened? So I
it sets
went and
up
I
the perfect
looked.
like power vacuum for an Islamic conquest.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes, exactly.
and I
Like it
was
sets it up
talking
perfectly.
about all these little polities and tribes, and you still had the Eastern Romans trying to get involved, and there was the Vandals, so they were fighting the Vandals, and there's just all these wars in it. It was just so deep and rich, and I didn't have time to talk about it all, but it's just like there's so much going on, and that of course all influences later when the Arabs do arrive and conquer it and convert it to Islam. And then a lot of the troops, though, that follow the Arabs into Spain are locals from North Africa who were formerly of all these different tribes and were former Roman citizens and all these things. So it just makes it all so complex and such a rich story.
Yeah.
Dane,
And
well, we got off talking about the Goths, but I am curious, like if you had that if you had that mini series, what are you making?
Well, I'm going to have to go with a different answer than my real answer because my real answer is too close to Jonas's. I've talked about this in a video a long time ago. Would be doing a Rome style series during the 5th century, like the collapse of the Western Roman Empire, talking about figures like Stilicho and Alaric and all those.
dude,
like
Stilicho was the name I was
Theodosius?
trying to remember yesterday. Yes.
Yeah,
We kept
Or
saying
Odosir.
Belisarius, but I think Stilicho was the first mercenary or barbarian sort of like war general of the East that we kept calling Belisarius.
He was in the West.
Yes.
Yeah, he's
Stilicho
before
was in the East.
Belisarius.
Yeah.
But yeah, just like 5th century, you've got all these. It'd just be a great thing to do a Rome style series where you look at like the top level famous people, but also you get a peek into like day-to-day life for like the average barbarian warrior, average,
The relationship of like the Roman citizen troops and like having to deal with like auxiliaries that just came in from like somewhere else, and they're like,
yeah, there's so many
brought them
interesting dynamics to explore. But since that's pretty close to the Goths, I won't make it my primary.
I do have to ask though, really quick, if you were to make that, what would the Goths' hair look like?
I feel like this is a loaded question.
It is. Don't answer it. Don't answer it. They're gonna come after us.
Well,
they're wearing gloves. They're wearing the light up gloves.
I'm gonna make them look exactly like the Vikings from the Vikings TV show.
There you go. There you go.
Just to piss off history aficionados. No, joking.
Yes.
But if I had to do a historical series, to be fair, I just started getting into this era of history, so I'm not super knowledgeable, and that's precisely why I'd want to make it. I'm learning about the Russian and British conquest of Central Asia in the 19th century. And it's basically their conquest of the steppe. And you've got Russia and Britain who are competing. They're competing imperial powers. And you have all these nomadic tribes in Afghanistan and Turkmenistan who, some of them are like descended from the Mongols and used to Tartars, all these things. And they're steppe nomads. And it's like the final like frontier of the world.
It's like when the British like begin their Gurkha troops.
Yeah, yeah. And I just saw it. I was researching today. I've got this. The British troops are like hauling a cannon across this like tiny canyon path where if they like slip, they're all falling off the edge. And it's like there's just so much history that I never knew about. And it would be.
Did you watch the Sherlock Holmes with Robert Downey Jr.?
I did not.
Like, you never saw those?
I saw one or two.
Watson limps. Like, Watson has a limp. And he goes, he suffered that in Afghanistan.
Oh.
And they're Victorians. So it would have been like their second invasion of Afghanistan. But I'm like, that is a very good historical nod by Guy Ritchie. That he's just most people don't know. Like, a lot of these dudes were fucked up.
Yeah.
They had like limps, or they like, why doesn't Uncle Timothy have a pinky? He's like, an Afghan chopped it. It's like, what? When? But yeah, that would be a great series. It'd be so good.
Yeah,
but it would be awesome to do like competing accents. Like you have the British dudes and the Russian dudes, like.
And I
But
can't
it would
do
be-
either
It'd
of
be a
their
great
accents.
opportunity
But
to have a it'd be a great opportunity to have a truly diverse cast without having to fake the diversity.
yeah, you absolutely could have
You know?
so much
Yeah.
opportunity to put in. Yeah, it's Russia, Britain, and their colonial troops, and then also all the different tribes and
Yep.
ethnicities within those territories. It could really, it's something. If I ever made a historical series, I would really want to try to include as many like characters with like different on different sides as possible to actually
Mhm.
flesh out like all the perspectives, kind of like Rome does. We follow
Right.
Antony and we follow Octavian,
Right.
so we try to get the whole perspective. So that would be great. Yeah, it would be absolutely a great time to have a very diverse cast and really, I mean, how many nomadic tribes people do we get to see on TV?
Oh
They
God.
never show that
I
shit.
didn't
Yeah,
even
I'm
know
like,
that they existed before I started studying history.
Right. Yeah. So yeah,
and their
it'd be
history
genuine.
is genuinely very rich. Like, it's not just rich, but there's a lot written about it from
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
not just like themselves, but like nearby neighboring tribes. Like
We will
these,
get Jack Weatherford on the podcast and he will teach us all about it genuinely.
dude. I mean, kind of snowballing. I genuinely want to see like a Rome style Scipio Africanus. Like
Would
The
that
fact
be your
is
answer? Is
the
that
puny-
your 10
the
series?
no,
Punic
but I want
Wars?
to no, but I want to see it. Like I
Okay.
want to see Chad Young Scipio being like, I got this shit. But I also like whenever I see like reenactments of, and am I saying that right, Scipio? Or would it be
I
Scipio?
pronounce it Scipio.
So
So
Yeah.
technically, let's settle this right now. Technically, the Latin and the Greek, every time there is a C, it is always pronounced like a K. There is never a time in the Latin language that the C is pronounced like an S. So names like Cicero are actually Cicero.
Kikiro.
And Macedonia is Macedonia. The Scythians are the Scythians are the Scythians. This sort of thing. But because we have anglicized it and because it doesn't sound natural to us, we say Scythians and Scipio and Cicero and these sorts of things. But even
Yeah.
Caesar, what is Caesar? Caesar is Kaiser.
Caesar.
Yeah,
Yeah, isn't that right? It's like Gaius Julius Caesar,
Kaiser.
yeah,
It's-
yeah, it's
something like that. But
shoot,
I would
that's-
love to see. But he also like we know that he had long hair. Like he would have looked more like you guys than your average
Scipio?
Romans, Scipio, because he
Yeah.
preferred to have long hair, and they would always taunt
Based.
like his higher ups would be like, "Who's this barbarian idiot in our ranks?"
He was a
and he's
little
like,
rebel.
Long hair
Really?
is barbaric. That's so interesting. I saw a video the other day where what? No, I'm just kidding. I'm not trying to. I don't think Tom Roswell survived the jive. I don't know. I can't tell if he likes me or not. He replies to my tweets sometimes, and I still can't tell. But we are going to get him on the podcast one day, so we will find out. But
Hell
he made
yeah.
a video recently. I don't know if you saw it, but he was basically talking about how the Germanic people didn't have long hair, or at least not to the degree that we think that they did in history. And I have a couple, like, I had a couple qualms about it, but we can discuss it on the podcast.
But we do know that Scipio had long hair as
Right.
as a sort of personal rebellion toward the status quo, and that's
Mhm.
kind
That's
of the
awesome. I didn't
origin.
know that. That's kind of
It's
awesome.
kind of the origin of his greatness is that he had this like long flowing hair, and people were like, "There's
That's not
no
Roman.
way."
Yeah.
Yes, but he came from, I believe, an aristocratic family. Like he's
Yes.
kind of like Paul Atreides. Like he's like,
Mm.
I'm not this dude you think I am. I will wage war the way you guys do it. I will grow my hair. I will be wild, and I will win. And I'm like, they should show that shit. But and he was young too. He was like shockingly young for being as accomplished as he was.
That would be
Which
a
I
really
always
cool
loved.
series.
But that's not
Hopefully
the one I
Mel
would
Gibson
make.
will make it.
His new one sounds crazy, where he's doing the Siege of Malta.
yeah,
Dude, this,
yeah. I'm excited
he's
for that.
my favorite.
I'm like, it is going to be sick. Like, let's
Yes.
be real. Siege
Yeah,
of Malta is it's unfathomably based. It's crazy. But if I had my choice, I'm shocked that they've never made a series on Mithridates. He was king of Pontus. So he was Pompey's. He actually posed like the greatest threat
Yeah,
to
I
Rome.
was reading about the Mithridatic. How would you say it? Mithridatic. War?
Mithridatic Wars.
Yeah.
They call him the Poison King, which is like kind of his like nickname, I guess, because he spent so
Interesting.
much time studying pharmacology and studying different poisons, and he poisoned himself repeatedly. He grew up on stories of his ancestors being poisoned before their time was done. And so he would poison himself over and over again. So when people would go to assassinate him, it wouldn't have any effect.
So based. Oh my God, are you serious?
It's
That
He
is so
microdosed
cool.
himself.
He would
Yes.
microdose every day, and he would spend time with his like scientists being like, I heard I got like a little bird chirping in my ear that somewhere far away past the Hindu Kush, they're harvesting these poisons. Like, I need someone to ride out and get it, and I need to microdose it because
Yeah.
someone's going to hear about it and use it on me.
By the
But
way, if
he,
anybody out there has allergies, you can do the same thing. Just saying. No, I'm
oh,
just kidding.
yeah.
That's not medical advice. Don't don't do that.
No, I think they should. And I
I
think
think
they
that you
should
can
believe you.
though. I think that they, yeah. But anyways,
But
please.
Mithridates, I love the story. I mean, they have, what is that called? Like the hero scale, where it's like all of the historic and like, I gotta figure out what that is. There's like a hero scale where basically like it's a scale of every requirement for a great hero or like a
Like just like the
godchild.
hero's journey sort of arc sort of thing.
No, I gotta find it. It's something about like the savior scale or something like that. Maybe you guys can look it up. I don't know.
I'm gonna put a photo of it up while you're talking right now. So go ahead as though everybody knows what we're talking about.
Okay. But the story goes is that Mithridates actually scores higher on this than Jesus. So
Real.
like
That's
it's a very weird origin story and not enough people talk about it, and I think there's a great reason for that. And it's a very explainable reason, but Mithridates is basically the child culmination between Macedonian Greece and Persia. Because his ancestors both, that's why he's named Mithridates. He's named for a Persian god.
Mithras.
Correct. But he speaks Pontic Greek. So he comes from a Greek area of Anatolia. His kingdom was the Black Sea. Like his kingdom was literally the entire Black Sea from Turkey all the way to Ukraine. And this is at a time when Pompey Magnus is like making a name for himself. So he's like beginning his conquests. So he's, I believe at this time, like Rome had subdued Athens and they were trying to push further into Anatolia. And Mithridates spoke something like 28 fluent languages because of all the different tribes in
Yeah.
Anatolia.
Yeah.
And he was like, it's the duty of a king. So his whole origin, like in his childhood, rival families try to poison him. They try to assassinate him. He flees to the wilderness with his like young comrades. They spend their time in exile doing calisthenics, getting unfathomably jacked, studying warfare, eating from the land, honey, walnuts, hunting wild animals, and just like becoming men in the woods. And then just about the time he reaches like his age of maturity, he returns to society. He establishes dominance over Pontus, which is this emerging great kingdom of commerce. Like they have like a great trade society in the Black Sea, and Pontus is basically like the guardian of that entire region. But while this is happening, Rome is also going beast mode, and they are not stopping. They like Pompey had taken Hispania. He was now reassigned to go take over this side of the empire, or I guess you can say the republic at the time. And Mithridates truly poses like this great opposing force to Rome that really, I believe, the reason that it's never talked about is because of the dagger it placed in Romans, that they're like, don't even talk about that. Like, he was responsible for the largest mass murder of Roman citizens that ever took place. And it was something like tens of thousands in one day were all killed. But on his orders. It was like an orchestrated mass killing. I gotta find this and find the number. Sorry.
No, no worries.
Because it's actually unfathomable. It's like crazy.
That is pretty insane. I can't believe that I haven't heard. Hmm.
Okay, so it says the Mithridatic Massacre, also known as the Asiatic Vespers, was the coordinated mass killing of approximately 80,000 to 150,000 Roman citizens, settlers, and their families in Anatolia in 88 BC.
yeah.
With how many men?
I think this was how the story was presented in
Okay.
the data. The data suggests that he had created a coalition of Anatolian allies. So these are like the Galatians, like different groups living in Anatolia that weren't part of his kingdom.
Shout out
He had,
Cults in Anatolia.
big ups, but
Yeah.
they basically coordinated this whole thing together. That he's the mastermind behind, at this day, at this time, no matter what, we execute. And to think about, like, aside from just the general killing of that many people in one day is like insane to think about. But to be able to coordinate and communicate with that many people and be able to persuade all these people that if we band together, we can beat Rome. And think if you're Pompey or you're Crassus or you're young Caesar and you hear that 150,000 of your fellow countrymen and settlers have been murdered, it creates like it's like the first time Romans had felt like a deep wound since Cannae, if I'm pronouncing that right. Like that many Romans dying in one day, like is enough to mobilize the heart of Rome, which at the time is Pompey Magnus. He is like Rome's first and foremost war dog. Like he's their Patton, and he's like, I have to destroy Mithridates. So they create these basically like guerrilla wars with the Pontic Empire. And I'm like, there's no movies about this. There's no TV shows. Nothing about Mithridates. They try and poison him. Doesn't work. Try and kill him. Doesn't work. He ends up spending the rest of his days after Pontus falls in the woods with a young warrior lover of his, like a woman warrior lover, and they just live in the wilderness. And he dies of like old age.
Hey,
Wow.
that's not the worst way to go out
No, he
compared to
didn't have
some
to go out
fates in the
bleeding in the
Asian
snow.
world.
Yeah.
Apparently,
Seriously.
I mean, there's different sources that say what, but I just think like that's such a good plot of like two literal immovable objects and they are at odds. And it's like one person has the advantage of home court, they have the advantage of knowledge, they have the advantage of manifest destiny of like I am the product of Mithra and I'm the product of Zeus and I am the culmination of these cultures. And then you have Pompey who's like, don't fuck with me. Like I have to kill you. And
Yeah.
I think it would be great. I think it'd be so interesting.
Wow.
But yeah,
I mean, for anybody who has seen this episode and will watch Dane and I's last episode on the Goths, you have so much material now that you can work on if you are a writer in Hollywood. You're welcome.
Yeah. That's actually a huge issue I have all the time is people they take these stories, like take like Vikings Valhalla, which was like a huge Netflix production spin-off of Vikings, and like the Earl of Kattegat or whatever the city is that they live
Is a
in
black woman.
is a black woman that is an actual guy. He was like an actual earl. And I'm like the lack of creativity, especially like there's no shortage of historical material to choose from that correlate directly with specific people in specific places. Like
hmm
I don't understand why they do things like this. Like I'm like,
Yeah.
why?
It almost like at first I thought it was just because, wokeness and like, oh, they're trying to be inclusive and they don't actually care about accuracy. I think it's more evil than that. I think what they're trying to do is in the same way that Dane said Timothy Chalamet in his video instead of saying Timothy Chalamet.
You will be hearing about this.
Yes, it's like I almost think that they're going, "You see that shit? Fuck you."
Well, there's
Fuck you,
like
and
there's
fuck
like
your
a deeper
intelligence because
conspiracy, obviously. And
yeah,
I mean,
no, I think so
I
too.
am a
But I
person
think
of
immediately
Jewish
it's one of those.
heritage, so I'm up on that. I'm
Yeah,
very up on that.
so you get no, I'm just kidding.
Dude,
But
I
but
get
I do think that it's one of those things where it's meant to sort of pull you out and be like, black woman in Scandinavia, like what are we talking about here?
Yeah.
Did they have? It's just like, oh well, they might have because they had slaves, and it's like, okay, bro. Then a woman is going to become the jarl. Like, I'm sorry, it's just
it brings
there's
up
no
the
way
whole
that
debate about what's that guy's name? He's doing Odyssey.
Nolan,
I'm blanking.
Christopher Nolan.
Christopher Nolan.
Christopher Nolan's Odyssey. It's the whole
He made
argument
Helen
of like,
of Troy black as well.
well, but the Netflix they did Troy Fall of a City and
And
Achilles
they
is
made
black.
Achilles and Patroclus black.
And they made them
Look,
gay, and I'm like,
yeah.
if you've read the Iliad, there's nothing indicating, like, if anything, it's indicated that they're relatives,
Yeah.
that they're related.
We literally spoke about this on the last episode too.
Oh,
'cause
shit.
it
All
came
right,
up.
sorry, never mind.
No,
never
it's
mind,
so
never mind.
funny. It's because we're a little bit backlogged right now, but it's so funny because yeah, it's like one of the things we spoke about was that like we're looking at these things from very modern perspectives. So you have a translator like Emily Wilson who sees Achilles and Patroclus, and Achilles cries over Patroclus's death because they had been childhood friends or relatives perhaps, but they were best friends and they fought alongside each other for 10 years on the beaches of Troy, and then he was killed brutally. And you want Achilles to be a stoic Chad about it? What the fuck is wrong with you, first of all? And second of all, like, why are you so porn-brained that you think it has to result in them having sex because they cried over one another's death? The reason
Yeah.
it was brought up was because we were talking about Alexander and Hephaestion as well.
Yeah.
It's like Alexander also went into a spiral after Hephaestion's death. It's like, yeah, it was his best friend. They were
But
raised
not
together. They
just,
loved
but
each
not
other.
just Alexander. Like Ptolemy goes into a spiral.
Yeah, they were literally they were brothers of war. Like that.
What are they called? The Diadechi or whatever.
Diadachi. I don't know how to pronounce it, but I know
Yeah.
exactly.
But it's
what
like
you're
the
talking
league,
about.
the league of homie generals.
Yeah,
Like they're
yeah.
they're in a class of themselves.
Yeah.
Like
But-
no one gets it.
You can't expect modern audiences to understand that. They've never been in war. They've never even
Yeah,
been
sure.
in like I talked about this on my last the closest thing that I ever got to having that sort of relationship with people was I did a season as a wildland firefighter in Washington, and the guys on my engine, like if they called me today, like they're still my brothers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like one of them I'm still like best friends with to this day, and I speak with him maybe once a year. But it's just because like you go through those things together where you think that you're gonna die and you got to have each other's backs, and that it's like it creates a bond that the average brain can't comprehend, and they're like they had to have been fucking. And it's like no, what?
Yeah.
yeah,
I just saw a meme of that where it was like the economy used to be so good that if you were single living alone, people genuinely thought you were
Thought
gay,
you were gay.
which is so funny. And I'm like, that is
Yeah.
hilarious. That's so true. And now
Yeah.
it's like I did something reckless. I bought 2 cartons of eggs instead of 1. Like
yeah,
that's
yeah.
how bad this has gotten. But
yeah.
the other script that I would, or the other miniseries I would make is I finished reading Gates of Fire, if you've ever read Gates of Fire before. It's on like the Marine Corps required readings, but it's
Is
a
it,
retelling
it's Thermopylae?
yes.
Yeah,
But it's
one
a-
of my buddies in the Marines, and he had to read it. He told me it was great.
It's if you've never read it, it's a phenomenal retelling of the events and politics leading up to Thermopylae, but it also talks a lot about the Persian perspective. Because how the book is framed is there's a helot, so he was a slave to one of the aristocrats that fought in Thermopylae, and he's been captured. He's wounded, and he's been captured by Persian forces, and he's brought to Xerxes. And Xerxes is, decked out in the finest jewels and has a very elegant beard, and he's represented as a real Persian.
Not in 300.
No. Yeah, no. Yeah, Xerxes with like his nose rings.
Yeah.
No, so he's brought to Xerxes, and Xerxes is like, hey, my army was held up for 3 days by an army that they should have decimated in 10 minutes. I need you to explain to me Spartan culture. Explain this to me, because I'm having a hard time understanding. Like, I sent
Wrap
my
head around it. Yeah.
I sent my personal guard.
Yeah.
I
What were they
sent the
called?
immortals.
The
The immortals.
Immortals? Yeah.
He's like, I sent these basically like I can't remember if they were eunuchs or not, but they're basically just like
There was
they're like
something.
spiritually sound warriors that are the
Mhm.
personal guard of Xerxes. He sends them, they're like held up.
Mhm.
And so that's what brings on this whole story, is that as this helot is telling them about, I can't remember how he was from a Greek village, and that Greek village was invaded by what are they called? Argonauts. They're people from Argos.
Argonauts. Okay, yeah.
So they were brutally murdered by people from Argos. Then they escape. They go into Laconia, which is where Greece is, or where Sparta is in the Peloponnese, that region. And they seek refuge because they remember hearing like, oh, the greatest enemies of Argos are the Spartans. So if we're going to seek retribution for what happened to us, we'll go to Sparta. But the Spartans are like, you're a slave now.
Yeah.
You're cleaning my shield every day.
More like under new management.
Yeah. I mean, they're not like horrible, but this specific slave is like attached to a very aristocratic family, and it's this guy named Danekis, who's an actual soldier that fought at Thermopylae. So they use real politics in this book, but I think like 300 did such damage to that story that it's like, why are and it's like racist too. It's like, why are the Persians shown as these like
monsters?
Yeah, I'm like, Persia in the story, the Persians are culturally superior. They have a far greater empire and they touch far more regions than Sparta, which is it's a very isolated polis. Yes. And so in the story, the Persians are like, when they arrive on the beaches, they're like, this is Greece? This is a shithole. Like, they're like, where are we? Yeah. But the Greeks are like, we will fight tooth and nail for the shithole because this is where we're from. But
it's our shithole.
It's our shithole. And they don't even like this shithole. So
no disrespect to Greece.
No, but that's how it was framed historically. Yeah. But 300 would have you think like these dudes are all there's so many good points to make about 300 specifically, like how Leonidas is like, of course those Athenians would hear your bribes, those boy lovers. Yeah. Like he just says that, and I'm like, yeah, you guys, like Spartans were way more into that than like, because it's like they grow up in the Agoge, which is like, there's just boys from the time you're 7 to the time you're 14. You can kill a helot and then gain your freedom. But from that point from 14 until about 35, you live in barracks. Yeah. And you basically have to be issued a woman to reproduce. Like the government issues you a wife. You don't get to go Riz like everybody else. Like
that is selected for her breeding capabilities.
She's picked out, and I might be wrong about this, but she is like picked out from the gym. Yeah. Like the women go lift, they go train, they get jacked.
They have to train just like the men, yeah.
And then they're like, you two would produce crazy soldiers. Like they're doing their own NBA draft. It's quite literally
selective breeding.
Yeah. Yes. No, correct.
It's domestication and selective breeding for the strongest of the human stock.
Yeah, I won't spoil the rest. That's just the general gist of the book, but it takes you from the perspective of a slave talking to a king, and then by the end, you really get this kind of... I literally like cried at the end because I was like, I felt like my own friends died. Like,
I gotta read this.
Because they take you through the Agoge, they take you through what the training looks like, and that the helots often train with their masters because if the masters fall, the helots rise up and finish the work. So that's
which is why they were able to revolt a couple times, because they were actually like tactically strong.
That's essentially the Spartacus story too. That a lot of these people were like Thracians, Dacians, Illyrians, and they're like war-torn people. And then the second you give them any leeway, it's like, oh wait, you just trained them to fight in death pits, and now they just got free. Like, oh fuck.
Oh no.
Yeah, that's not good.
No.
Yeah, speaking of Pompey, now we're just going back. All roads lead to Pompey, bro.
Yeah.
No, quite literally.
Yeah.
Dude.
But
very interesting.
I do love that. I on my social media, I'm definitely just like 40s, 50s style, but I do love history. History is like my great love.
Bro, jump into that. Make more videos about that.
I plan to. I think
you're a great storyteller.
Thanks. I feel like I just ramble a lot, which helps in a podcast setting, but I definitely want to move more into like specific historical examples. I made a video a little while back about how certain pieces of your wardrobe are attached to World War II and you might not know it. And I was talking about t-shirts, fatigues, brown leather boots are not unique to World War II, but they were definitely popularized in photographs during that time
Yeah.
as the general work boot. Those people all come home, they continue that fashion. And I love those kind of like historical through line videos because
Yeah.
there's no
There's
end
so
to it
many.
really.
I just learned yesterday, my girlfriend, well, a couple days ago, my girlfriend told me where khakis came from. I didn't really know where the color came from. And it was
India.
yep, yep. And it is just like their version of camouflage. And I was like, that makes perfect sense. It's so interesting. This is just one of those things where I was like, khaki is such a weird word. Where do we get that from? It's like, oh, it's Vedic.
What do you guys
Or
think in history? Which group? Maybe that's too broad. Which army do you think had the best attested drip? Because
drip.
it's not
Oh
just
God.
you can't just say Rome because it's like you have the monarchy, you have the whole republic, and then you have the empire, and none of those, like if you showed a Roman monarchy soldier and then a late empirical period soldier, they look like they were not even from the same country, and many of them
Yeah.
weren't.
Yeah.
Like the introduction of red, the shield shape changes.
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
like the helmet totally changes. Like it
Yeah.
goes from that like stupid dome that isn't doing shit for you, bud. And then it's like it becomes like you have the neck brace that protects from a downward slash on the neck, and you have like the side guards for your cheek, but then they roll that shit. It's basically just a knight helmet. It's the first round
Proto
of
knight
knighthood
helmet. Yeah.
helmets. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I personally think, and this is just I'm biased, but I do think the United States Marine Corps during World War II had the best drip. I think
Really?
that is
Okay.
like top tier. Proportions are on point, dripped out. That's just me.
I'm saving that so that I can throw up a photo.
Just throw up a,
What do you
a
think, Dane?
snippet from the Pacific.
Gosh, it's tough. There's so many eras in history that have amazing drip. But I gotta go with the launch connects. I mean, Renaissance mercenaries that were literally wearing like carnival outfits
the
and chopping people in
Swiss
half.
Guard.
They were adversaries against the Swiss Guard. And their whole thing, that's where swagger comes from. Like literally, they walked around with swagger. They wanted as much color and pizzazz as possible to attract the most attention because these were the guys that were running into pike blocks with their two-handed swords and into musket fire, and they wanted everyone to know they were the most badass people on the planet. And they also charged a lot for their services. But their drip is just—it's almost excessive. Like if you saw that in the movie, you'd be like, why did he put them in? Why did they put them in clown costumes? But it's like, no, that's what these dudes actually wore when they were killing people. So I
Oh
gotta go
yeah.
with the launch connects, German mercenaries in the Holy Roman Empire.
There's a saying, and I need to figure out what it was. God, this whole podcast is just being like, there was this thing I can't remember, but there's a saying basically that in film, in historical movies, you have to refrain from putting certain accuracies in there because it will fuck with people. Like when they show the Colosseum, for example, they can't show the scoreboard. They can't show the big
Hmm.
board that showed how much concessions costed. Because people would be like, what the fuck? And it's like, they had that shit. You could go buy shit. Like, why do you think they didn't?
Dude,
Is
well,
the real
that's what I'm
question.
saying. That's why you have to make everything brown and beige because it just
Yeah.
immediately signals to people, oh, this is old, and they
Or
they
you're
don't
like,
even
wow,
think.
the screen has a yellowish hue. We must be in Mexico.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Shit.
If I honestly, my fascination with history, mythology, all of it in general, all began with ancient Greece. Um, so I think that like when I think of the military garb that I would want to personally wear would be of a a hoplite from the Peloponnesian War. I think
Respectable
that that would
Excellent,
choice.
excellent choice.
Yeah, I think like on either side. I think I think that just like the Greek hoplites in the Peloponnesian War just had like the best blend of having like enough armor on their body to the point where they looked safe, but also it just looks like super free and flexible, and like you have like the breastplates that kind of like, if you're not wearing like one of those linothoraxes, which also looks pretty comfortable too, you're maybe wearing like a breastplate or iron breastplate or something like that, and it kind of looks form fitting, and it looks like it just, I don't know, it just like something about it just looks so like natural and like just like aesthetic to the human form.
Oh yeah. There's so many
You
good
know?
choices. It's actually just like a trap of a question, but I thought I'd ask
Yeah.
anyway. But
I know,
yeah,
I love it. That's great. It is. We're at an hour and 50 right now. Dane's definitely got to pee. So
Um,
we.
Also, my internet start at this hour it starts to go in and out, so we might want to wrap it
cool.
pretty. Um,
Okay.
Yeah. Do you want to,
um,
let's take a quick break and then maybe do some questions, or do you want to, what do you
maybe
Yeah.
think?
just a couple questions because yeah, there's a couple points there where I totally lost you guys, and
Oh
honestly, I don't know
shoot.
what you said.
Okay.
Damn.
Yeah, no, no
um,
sweat, no
I
sweat.
don't know
It's
why
late at
my
night
internet
anyways.
at from like 9 to like 11. I swear the company like cuts the bandwidth I get. Cox. I don't know if you guys have Cox internet. Um, no, that's sorry. That's literally the company's name is Cox. But it is also Cox. Like it sucks Cox internet.
Bro,
But
all right.
yeah.
I'm leaving all this in, by the way.
Hey, I'm gonna run and pee and then yeah, let's do a couple questions, but then we'll
Cool.
probably want to wrap.
Okay.
Yep. Cool. All right. See you in a bit. Dude, this has been an incredible conversation so far. It's a lot of fun.
Okay, sweet. I was like, are people gonna like the content creation tidbits?
People like anything,
Yeah.
and I think that that's the most important thing that I've come to realize is just like I love when I am hearing people that I want to hear on a podcast, and they're not talking about the things that I always hear them talk about, like myth and history or whatever I'm into that they talk about, fitness, whatever. When they're just talking about like, I don't know, just having a conversation like with their friends about real things. And we're all content creators. It would be weird if we didn't talk about content.
Yeah.
So,
All right, should we do a question segment?
Let
yes,
us do it.
Just rapid fire.
yes, let me pull them up. All right, we're back. We've got some questions. We've got 10 or so. Let's jump through these as quick as we can, and we'll see how many we can cover. Number one, Davis Lowe asks, favorite history topic of all time.
So broad, man.
So broad. We can
Um,
rapid fire this one.
Favorite topic. I go World War II.
Okay,
That's my go-to. That's my favorite.
go for it, Dane.
I guess it's the most stereotypical answer you could probably put, but Rome. It's just because it's so much more than the empire. There's just so much more depth to it. But very stereotypical answer to say Rome, but all roads lead to Rome, right?
Yeah, they do, and it's kind of similar to my answer, which is kind of just like classical era Greece. I kind of have that like philosophical tie-in too, because I love studying philosophy and especially ancient Greek philosophy. And it's like what got me into history to begin with. So it's always kind of something I fall back to. Um, this guy Davis Lowe really likes you, Ethan.
That's my younger brother.
Oh, okay. I was
That's
like,
so
you left
funny.
like 6 questions.
That's so funny, dude.
Okay.
He's
What is
gonna
your
love
favorite?
that.
What is your favorite movie of all time?
Damn. Favorite movie, the one that I watched. It's not. I don't think it's the best movie, but I love Watchmen.
Watchmen. Very cool.
Fair enough.
Dane?
Watchmen's phenomenal.
I don't know if we've
Um,
said our favorite movies on this podcast or not.
I feel like I have because I feel like the answer I'm about to give I feel like I've said this before, but I'll say it again. It's Ravenous. It's a
Mm.
Western dark comedy Nietzschean
Well,
cannibal film.
yeah. You did mention
Which
Hell
is
yeah.
a mouthful to say. But I'm actually probably going to do a video on it soon. Again, I've done a video on it.
Very cool. My favorite is "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?" It
Fire.
is. You've seen it, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's an adaptation of Homer's The Odyssey set in 1930s Mississippi. It's great. George Clooney, hilarious. Favorite sibling?
See,
I
that's my
just thought
younger.
that one.
Yeah,
Okay. This is from Mugmaniac, 1995. Would you rather be a samurai, pirate, or cowboy?
that's like I don't know. I'm from here, so I would say cowboy. I'm from the
Cowboy.
West. Cowboy.
Pirates are the second. Pirates were my first love before I even knew that they were real. When I was like a little kid, like when I was 4 years old, my birthday party. There's photos somewhere of it's entirely pirate themed. Everybody dressed up like pirates. My parents did an incredible job. I was obsessed with pirates. I still am. I would definitely be a pirate.
Dude, that's such a good like Instagram story quote is just be like, I love pirates so much I wish they were real.
Yeah, no, I know that they are now, and that's I think one of the things that made me start like really taking studying history seriously was just like watching Pirates of the Caribbean and just being like, how much of this shit is real? You know, how much of it is like total romanticization, how much of it is accurate, and that sort of thing. Um, yeah,
Or that the golden age of pirates is like 2 years. It's
it's
like
a little longer than
1713.
2 years, but it's like
Well,
it's
they say the golden age when it's like all the stories of like Treasure Island and all those like
uh-huh,
take place
uh-huh.
is like 1713 to 1715. When it's like
Man,
the
Interesting.
most amount of those dudes are out there. It's like
Yeah, like when they were all at their peak at the same time. I guess
at the
that would
same
make sense
time of that
because
overlap.
you had Blackbeard and Charles Vane and like just yeah, you had
You
so
had
many.
Hornigold, you had
Uh-huh.
you had all the good ones, like out
Black
running
Bart.
amok.
Yeah.
Jack
Um
Rackham,
Jack Rackham, there you go.
yeah, deep cut.
What do you think, Dane?
Well, I like pirate. I would like, but cowboy is more true to my nature. I'm not scared of the ocean, but like deep water, riding on a ship through a storm, a sailing ship would actually be pretty harrowing for me. So I think I'd rather be on a horse in the
Well,
desert
and
than
dudes get gross. It's like you're in a confined space with
yeah,
these
yeah.
dudes that just smell like
There's a
ass.
whole yeah, yeah. Um, Samurai would be cool because it's essentially a knight, like, but just in
Yeah,
Japan. But I
just
don't
in
know
Japan.
enough to really connect on that level. I will
You
say
don't know
though,
enough
there's also
Japanese.
samurai pirates. That was a real thing with samurai
True.
pirates.
Yes.
So,
True.
that yeah, but I'll go with cowboy. That's really true to my nature, and I grew up loving the old west. So, I just need me a six shooter.
Hell yeah.
I got you. I got you one. It's unregistered. You can have it.
Their serial
There ain't
number
no
was weirdly
registration in the old
scratched off.
one.
Branson MP4 asks, "Do you believe that hair holds spiritual or metaphysical value?"
Yeah,
Yes.
I
Yes.
think we're all kind of in agreement. I mean,
Yeah.
I definitely am going for more of the like, I guess you could say like, Greek look as
It
I have
reminds. I
like,
was gonna say it reminds me of like an ancient Roman or like a Caesar haircut.
yeah, I definitely go for that kind of like shorter hair, long beard kind of deal.
Hmm.
Whereas like you guys both look like the dying Gaul statue.
Yeah. Yes.
Like you guys
Yes.
both just look like that statue. But it's like I do to a certain degree as I grow older and I come into contact with people. This is like such a not topic that I ever talk about, but the one thing I'm ever commented on is my beard. That's the one thing that strangers compliment me on. And it kind of makes you think about how commanding facial hair can be. Like when you see a truly good, like you guys both probably get this a lot, but when someone sees like a truly defined mustache or a very well kept beard, there's something that is in the air where the thought becomes physical,
Yeah.
and yeah, it just commands a certain
Well, this
primal
is like a
thing.
in my shout out to my Discord group. In my Discord yesterday, we were talking about for like the entire day what the female equivalent, because there's women in there too. Shout out the women in my Discord. We were talking about what the female equivalent of a mustache is because like there's so many different things that you can do with the mustache, and is it performative, is it actually impressive, is it masculine, is it not masculine, does it, like, and what's the female equivalent of that like takes on so many forms. We couldn't really draw a full conclusion.
Well, wouldn't it just be hair?
We were between like bangs, like is bangs on a woman, because part of it is like it could be performative, doesn't look good on everybody, signals femininity in the way that a mustache signals masculinity, that sort of thing. So it's like there's these interesting parallels that you can draw, but it really does, like, you see some people with a mustache and you're just like, because that's the thing is people always comment on Dane and I's mustaches in the same way that people are commenting on your beard, because they see people with mustaches all the time, but they don't see people with, and I'm not trying to gas us up or anything, they don't see people with our kind of facial hair because like we take it a little bit further and like more seriously.
They see the kind of like hipster stash. They don't see like what's that guy's name? Doc Holliday stash.
Yeah.
Doc Holliday.
Or
yeah,
like
exactly.
the Zapata stash, where it's like
that's
very...
the thing is like because people see it and people comment on my stuff all the time. They're like, "Oh, you look like a conquistador," because of my hair and everything else. And some people are like, "Oh, you look like a knight," and I'm like, "We don't know what knights look like under their helmets." And then they're like, "You look like a," and it's all just what they portray your mustache to signal. And yeah, people who dislike me, they're like, "You look like a fucking hipster and you look ugly and stuff." And it's like, I am what you say I am. Christ spoke of this, and so it's like it's whatever you perceive the mustache to mean, that sort of thing. But yeah, why did we start talking about this again? What
there was a question asked about this hair
value.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
cool.
I hope we kind of cover that.
Definitely. Final question. I don't want to read this username.
Fair enough.
Sorry.
Why?
I'll read it. His username is I want to kill myself _ not kidding.
That's my friend Fucko, who's in my fashion group.
Fair enough.
It's just such a hex on your life, bro. You gotta change your username.
His TikTok username is Fucko, which is like his nickname. And he's just like the best. He's like the spirit animal of Indigoon's fashion menswear group. But his Instagram name being that is so crazy.
From I want to kill myself, not kidding. What do you think future historians will say when they look back on the time that we live in?
Oh, that's a great question, actually.
It's a great question. Shout out
to you. That's a fantastic question. That's actually crazy that he asked that. That's so impressive.
That's why I saved it for last.
Wow. What would they say about now? It depends on the scope. It depends on the lens, because I think more liberal, more left-leaning historicals would say this was an era of semantics, that people didn't do enough to, further the political beliefs they believe in. But I think more conservative historians, the more data-focused ones, would look at this era akin to other empirical collapses, that like Rome's collapse is often portrayed as this thing that happened at once, where the barbarians enter the gates. But they would not have they wouldn't have seen it that way. And truthfully, the fall takes years, decades, maybe even centuries.
Yeah, it's
to fully cultivate, and we were something and now we're something else. And I think what I'm seeing is, and I think, Jonas kind of talked about the immigration thing, is like human movement is an innate part of the human story, is people going places. And I think when I think about Europe and I see photos of Paris and I see photos of London, and most of the people there are not indigenous to the land, it does beg the question, at what rate does it cease to be England and it becomes something else?
Right, and what does it mean to be English? This is a question that's like very common nowadays.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not gonna dive deep into we're already at 2 hours, but I do think that that's a question that more conservative historians, generations from now, will look back at the West specifically and say, the data indicates collapse. That economically they were at a collapse, morally they were at a collapse. Like we were talking about dignity earlier, and it's like people don't care to get, dressed up or whatever, or they don't, yada, yada, yada. But it's like everything is indicative, or is indicating towards the kind of fading away of what used to be the empire of America as we
I think we're
started. Yeah.
nearing. I think that we are nearing the end of the Roman Republic and entering the sort of like Roman Empire period where it's eventually going to lead to decay and collapse because of degeneracy and decadence and the disparation between the aristocracy, the patricians, and the um, um, peasantry. What's the word I'm
Plebeians,
looking for?
plebeians.
Plebeians.
Plebeians, yeah. The
Um,
plebs.
but the thing, because like we said, history rhymes, but it doesn't always necessarily repeat. And I do think that it's going to depend on exactly where this goes. I will say, I think, if I could put it very plainly, if our era that we're in right now leads to collapse, I think that historians will look back and say, wow, they were all very distracted. They were so distracted by everything that was going on that they didn't actually see the, like, it's like a slow moving car crash. Like we're not even seeing that the car is crashing because we're so distracted by all of the like smaller little things that are going on in the world. Like not to break, like the fact that we're still arguing about politics when like we know that the elites are eating babies is kind of one of
Yeah.
those things that puts me on to the fact that like, oh, we're actually so fucking distracted because there's so many things going on that everybody is actually blind to what is going on. And it's going to just lead to our demise. However, if we are able to see ourselves out of this and lead us into a sort of like renaissance of, um, let's say, just cultural control, cultural solidification, and like a place where we're not all like at each other's throats so much to the place where we can like finally unify under a common goal. I think that historians will look back at this time period and they will think that we made something great out of something very inherently dangerous, which is like mass media and the control of all of these things. Because that's really all it is. Everybody's plugged in all the time. Like our history will look back at the average person and how much time they spent just consuming information about what's going on in the world and not participating in it. And I think that
Yeah.
the power will be given to those who do participate in it. But the people who participate in it today are the ones who are not distracted. So like we need to, yeah, I
Well,
think
this
that
is
that's,
this is it's two things, and I guess we can leave it on this. It's kind of two different stories simultaneously. It's Plato's Republic, which is what we're doing.
yes.
In an essence, we're beginning to talk about what the perfect society looks like.
Hmm.
And then the other story is pre-Civil War Spain, which is that you have this
Mm,
kind of like cultural infighting with all the new tech available.
yeah.
And you have all of these outside voices that are tapping in. You have people from England and people from America going over like to fight for whichever side they believe in. And
Yep.
it's kind of a weird thing to look at. I do, if I can leave this convo with anything, it's that I do think America has something special. And I think that the inability, when I hear it all the time when people say like, well, white people have no culture. I hear it all the time on social media.
Hmm.
But really what that tells me is that it's like, well, Western culture, what you're talking about is Western culture. You're talking
Right.
about, Christendom, and you're talking about, Roman legal systems and Greek philosophy. You're talking about, the divinity pursuits of Jerusalem. You're talking about these things in a marriage, but it's so incorporated into your life that you're not able to see it. Like it's so part of the fiber of your being that you're not able to like pick at
Yeah.
one little thing. It's
You're
very
too
easy to
close
pick
to
at the
it.
things you're not.
Right.
It's very easy to pick at that. But when something's so ingrained in your fiber, I think that what historians will say is, and I don't know what the end results are going to be, obviously. That's like the great thing is you never ask a historian to predict the future
Hmm.
because it's like that's so not what we do.
Hmm.
And it's like hindsight is a bitch for other people, but for us it's like the best superpower. It's like, well, this was actually going on.
Yeah.
um I do think that they will point to this era as just like a time of great technological advancements coupled with great societal decay, and it's
Hmm.
like simultaneously happening.
And they go hand in hand, maybe.
Yeah, a lot of overlap, but yeah. Well, I guess that's kind of it for the pod, right? We've
Yeah,
answered all the
well,
questions.
I haven't answered the question.
Oh,
Dane hasn't
shit.
gone yet.
Dane, you go.
I was just going to say, adding on to everything you guys said, I don't think we even know what history as a field will look like in the future.
Right.
I mean, looking at Rome, there's guys writing history in the way that Roman historians did. And then a few years later, you have like the Viking sagas and stuff, and that's a completely different form of storytelling and history going on in that era. So between the way society might go and technology, I don't think we even can say what historians will be, like what form they will take, what ways of recording they will use. So it's very hard to predict not just what's going to happen, but what is even history as a field going to look like in the future. I don't
Also,
think
what their
we can
aim
say.
is going to be.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, kind of their purpose and function. We can't say, but we have an opportunity to shape whatever they look back on. So that's my high note.
That is a good high note to end on. Control what you can control, because at the end of the day, somebody's got to write stories, and you might as well be the main character of those stories. So,
But
At
if
least
I
try.
can add something, if they're gonna make statues about you, be dripped out.
Yes.
Dress
Yes.
cool as fuck.
Dress
Make-
like you're gonna have a giant statue made of you. Dress.
Start posing in photos like Roman statues where they're
Yes.
just kind of pointing.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That is the perfect note to end on.
Cool.
Beautiful.
Well, I really appreciate you guys having me on.
That's excellent. For the audience, we will have Ethan's socials in the description, so you check out his page and everything he's got going on. It's been great having you on. We had a very wide discussion, which is always nice to cover lots of ground. So appreciate you coming on.
Thank you so much.
Cheers, guys. We'll see you
All
next
right.
time.
See you next time.